Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Stat Check episode 91. This is Abandon the Despoiler, and as you can see by our lack of violence, he indeed has abandoned the Despoiler, as we have no idea where he is. He didn't say he wasn't going to be the show, he didn't say he was, so we're going with it. So you're joined by myself, Innes, Jeremy, and Nathan. We're here to talk all things Warhammer. We have stats from the first couple of weeks of the balance data slate. We have CSM hot takes, reactions, and I've played like 6 games with it. I don't know if you guys have had much chance to play against it, but yeah, it's been interesting. Otherwise, I wasn't on the show last week. I'm sure you guys had a great time. I was in bed because I had a rough weekend, so just couldn't make it on last week. But thank you to everybody and Brian for being here last week, and I hope you all had a great show. Otherwise, how's everybody doing today? Jeremy, would you like to start us off?
I'm doing pretty well right now. I'm painting. I'm getting ready for my trip to the U.S. Open in Dallas this weekend, and then I'm getting ready for a GT the week after that. And then this past weekend, I ran a fundraiser RTT for Team Canada at our local game store. Had a lot of fun. Got to watch some very silly games, including a highlight of which was the avatar of Kane realizing that he had the demon keyword when Drago was looking at him.
Oh no! And then you spent the only time you ever spend that 2CP stratagem for devastating wounds.
Yep. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm just having fun.
Nathan, how about yourself?
I played some 40k, which is a wild just mystery. I now have a 100% win rate against Innes. That's all I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna keep that record moving forward.
See you in Scotland, all right?
We can fix that. It's just going to lock Nathan in the room. We're getting your win rate against me to 20% or lower before you're allowed to leave this room.
No, it's fine. I enjoy it.
He doesn't want me to come into every episode from here till like the end of time going, yeah, my 100% win rate against Innes.
Hey man, GSC versus Terrans is a really tough match for Terrans.
It's true. It was way funnier having like 90% of Team Scotland in there as well. It's not really like 2 other people. Giving you a hard time about it. Other than that, I continue to do also like painting Age of Sigmar stuff, which is kind of exciting. I got Soulblight Gravelords have like awesome models. When else am I going to get to paint a vampire on top of a zombie dragon? Never. So I'm going to do that for Age of Sigmar stuff because it's a blast. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty good here in Chicagoland. It's finally become summer. I don't know. I don't have a lot going on here today. Everything's just peachy. No, probably not. I don't think that's a thing that you can have back. Not until time continues to move forwards, which I guess it is right now. But
that is how time usually works.
Oh, I guess I'm now going to be a judge at Ottawa Teams at the end of June, so I'll be there for that. So if you see me in Ottawa, you can say hello.
You can even claim your Crisp High 5 if you are
the
patron tier.
You can indeed claim your Crisp High 5 from me if you are of the appropriate tier. Otherwise, no high fives.
Yeah, you can only receive a slightly less crisp high 5. It must be.
It'll be a patented uncrisp high 5.
You get a damp high 5 from Nathan if you're not if you're not.
Oh, I don't know what the weather is.
I get it. You've been walking around all day judging, but
we'll see if some of the merch gets here since I ordered some. We'll see if some of it gets here because then I'll just bring that up with me.
It should be here by June.
Yeah. I ordered some for myself as well.
I'm very much looking forward to it.
Some jerseys and some hoodies, although I imagine it won't be hoodie weather by the time that I get up to Ottawa in late June. No. Yeah, that's about it. How are you doing, Innes? How's things?
I'm doing. It's been a busy couple of weeks. Had some bad news last week, the week before last, right before I went to a tournament. So it was a little bit of like oh god, I got to go do and run it, play in and run a tournament while having some rough news, and then came back and kind of have had a bunch of time to myself now, which is new and different. So I played a tournament last weekend, not the weekend just gone, the one before that with CSM, which I'm sure was in some small amount covered on the show. I got to play with the old Codex and win a GT with that, which was super cool. Played 5 really awesome games with running at people with Abaddon and Vindicator. The amount of fear you can inspire in somebody when you're like, so my Vindicator's going to Overwatch with sustained hits and full rerolls, and just like killing tanks with it on Overwatch from full is truly glorious. Whether it's good or not is entirely a separate question, but one that I refuse to answer on pain of being mocked. But it put me in a good headspace for when the new CSM rules came out. So since then, I've played 6 games with the new book now. I've tried a bunch of the different detachments. Looking forward to touching back into the old one again because it's still the gas juice. But yeah, enjoying that. And then I've done a ton of hobby. I built a Lord of Skulls today, 2 Venom Crawlers, 20 new Legionnaires from the Corn Berserker kit and the new Night Lords ones. Picked up 40 more cultists. Just stuff. Like I was that's just CSM things. And a Vashtor. So just the wall. I'll see what
it's wild to see Vashtors glow up, just like absolutely ridiculous.
I've played him in 2 games, 3 games. In 1 game, I got tabled before he came down. So he was in rapid ingress. I went second, and I got tabled on 2, which was interesting. In one of them, in one of them, he came down, tried really hard to kill a tank in combat, did 9 damage to it, and then it died in the next turn. And then he flew over to a 6 health tank and did 3 damage to it. I was like, fucking Vashtor.
He got a great glow up.
But he got a great glow up. Apparently, though, he doesn't know how to play the game.
He ingressed. Then in the last game, he ingressed in, and he charged a Death Shroud and a Lord of Virulence that got annihilated by the squad had been annihilated by a Forge Fiend, killed them, and then consolidated onto an objective, and then got nuked to death by a Plague Marine squad. So Vashtor, he's a 190 point Demon Prince. He's not Angron. He doesn't need to do a ton. He's just a slightly better prince. He was fun. I liked him. He's got good vibes.
It's very funny when people want to throw chip shooting at him now.
Yeah, he killed two Plague Marines. Ooh. The Blight Launcher died. I'm sure AJ noticed. It's like, oh, I forgot to fire he had already forgotten to fire it in the first volley. And was like, you have eight guns in that squad. You should be rolling 8 hazardous. I only rolled 7. Oh, Blight Launcher. I'll just kill that guy to the hazardous. I failed. So, yeah, interesting times.
The best.
So yeah, it's been good. I've taken up baking. I have done cookies, brownies, and blondies so far. I'm going to try bread next because I feel like I should learn how to make bread.
Bread is very rewarding and very dangerous to learn how to make.
Should I send you the 14 must-see bread things that I was forced to show one?
Genuinely tempting. The problem is that there's a very real problem with US recipes for anything is that everything is different. It's like slightly different product names in the UK. So like baking soda over here is bicarbonate of soda, and but we have baking powder, which is separate, and I have to no, I just use UK recipes. I can't use any of your weird foreign stuff. We don't have all-purpose flour over here. That's not a thing. Like horrible.
Yeah, I was going to recommend a book, but we can talk about it later. The book that I read before I got into bread baking that I think would be good. You might like it.
I'll never forget the time my sister made bread, but she made it with sugar instead of salt. That was
so she made cake.
No, it was bread with sugar. It was so much worse.
So American bread.
Hey,
yeah, she basically made a slice of bread.
But don't act like Canadian bread is that different.
No, it's not. It's just as bad.
Yeah. Don't start with me with that. I've been to Canada.
Let me rephrase then. North American bread.
There you go, bud. I've seen your Timbits on every corner, just as bread.
So, stop talking white bread. I have to have sourdough now. It's not the same for toast in the morning.
Good sourdough is definitely worth living for.
I don't know, like the shitty, cheap toasty bread is the optimal bread. It's full stat check baking episode. If next time I see Ben in person, we can do a cooking show.
I think episode 100 that we're rapidly approaching is just going to be bake check.
I think when we do episode 100, episode 100 is pre-WTC, right? Post WTC, we'll do like a whole smorgasbord of bonus stuff to mark the signal of the 100, maybe if we ever get Nathan to watch that SpongeBob movie with the Discord. Anyway,
well, maybe that will just be episode 100. Everything we said we would do that we never quite got around to doing, plus some extra stuff just because.
Okay. In the interest of not continuing to vamp, shall we move on to the stats? Before too far, broad goal for this episode, guys, we're going to be going through the stats from the first 2 weeks of the balance data slate. We have all the stats from this week, but it's a fairly small sample size because most of the events are pretty small. So we'll be combining in the additional events that were under the data slate from last week. Then we will be going through some CSM stuff. So the broad goal is we're going to talk through what each of us is going to pick one detachment and talk through why we like it, not so much what it is and all that sort of thing, but what it appeals to us, what kind of lists we want to build out of it, and all that kind of stuff. Anthony might jump in at some point. I'm guessing he won't. He messaged the chat, I think. No.
He said he's not on in our chat.
He's not joining. So we will not have Anthony whinging about how it's all so much cooler than World Eaters.
Can we make a tier list? Can we make a tier list of detachments?
No, our war already did that today. So
well, we can make a better tier list.
We can make
if you want to make another tier list, that's fine.
Okay.
Baking tier list so far: brownies, then blondies, then cookies. The cookies came out a little soggy.
All right, we're gonna
move on before this devolves.
All right, into us never getting to the CSM detachment,
and then we'll do this. Then we will do doing show questions as usual.
Yes.
At some point, the plugs will be in there. I'm sorry.
Before we go too far, Ben, I don't think that's a good idea. That seems like it opens us up to way too many problems to have a Patreon tier where it sends people goods.
You could probably find the right tier for that.
Yes.
And like one person will sign up and Innes will be very confused by it.
We need to have a waiver tier, basically. But we'll figure it out. All right.
I will consider, like, for major events in the UK, doing like a box of stuff to bring with me. That I could consider. Like, so if you're ITT, drop me a message. We can arrange something.
A baked goods exchange.
Innes's goal now is to just make sure that his opponents get a food coma before they actually have to play.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually lacing all of them with alcohol so that everybody just gets drunk when they play me.
You could just make alcohol like baked goods instead and just be happy with your life.
No,
I mean, that's definitely the milder version of spiking their food.
All right. I shouldn't have done that.
This would be such a provocative topic, guys. I'm sorry.
So we're gonna shove 2 weeks of data together because this last week of data was 9 events, but there were 9 relatively small events. So it really wasn't that many games and it's really not that much data. And since we didn't talk in depth really about the stats last week, because it was also a relatively small week from an event, like for post data slate numbers, we're just going to slide into this week with 2 weeks of data and kind of sum it together. So we have 18 events total across these last 2 weeks. And the number one performing faction across those 2 weeks is actually Space Wolves based on win rate alone. 2.4% of the meta, 64.6% win rate, an event win, 5 top 4s and 8 top 10s for a 2.89 over rep. So Wolf Jail is wolf jailing people, I guess, is the summary that I'm coming up with today. Right after them is Chaos Demons with 2.5% of the meta, 62.9% win rate. One
Guys,
event win.
What are we doing?
2 top 4s, 6 top 10s, and a 1.09 for over reps.
You're losing to demons.
I don't know, Innes. I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, it's 85 games, so it's a bit. But
yeah,
it's still just the numbers boggle my mind.
Yep. Next is Black Templars, 3.1% of the meta, a 61.2% win rate. 1 event win, 2 top 4s, and 6 top 10s for a 0.9. Those
nerfs to Ironstorm really working out there.
Yeah, it seems to be really slowing down the Black Templars just a ton. Grey Knights, 48 players, 6.4% meta representation, which is a wild number for Grey Knights, actually. 59.6% win rate, 4 event wins, 8 top 4s, and 16 top 10s for a 1.73 over rep, which might be a problem. That actually could just be a problem.
Given that they just got point increases. Actually, no, I guess their power armor went down, but we don't really care about that. Like, most people are still running like 5 or 6 NDKs. No Mrs. Dreadnoughts, which is, pretty good.
Yeah. It's actually like, I don't know. I think there's something fundamentally wrong there that GW just needs to approach at this point. I don't know, maybe Land Raider.
They are the
Redeemers
third
and
most
EKs.
played faction in the last 2 weeks. They are like a hair behind orcs and above Space Marines, like not the collated Space Marines, but just the Codex Space Marines.
Yeah, that's actually just a problem. They were creeping into problem range beforehand, but their meta representation was really low. Now their meta representation is hitting like too much while also still doing well. So we've actually just got a problem. We'll see if that pans out across a longer period of time. But as of right now, I'd put them on watch. Watch those Grey Knights as they beat you up with library books. In fifth place, I'm not even going to bother counting them, but it would normally be Gene Stealer Cult, but there are only 6 of them. And they managed a 58.1% win rate. They didn't do anything with it. They got a single top 10.
The best line. Not enough Gene Stealer Gene Stealer players for one squad of demo charge acolytes, but
they're one demo charge short of an acolyte squad. Yes.
Not true. It could be a 6-man.
True.
You can't have 4 bombs, so why would you even bother?
Actual 5th best faction, although I actually think it's the next faction who's only 0.1% win rate behind them is actually probably more in this conversation, is Sisters of Battle. 3.7% of the meta, a 54.7% win rate. No event wins, 3 top 4s, 9 top 10s for a 1.11. Sisters of Battle still good. Still doing just fine. And then the next 2 factions are maybe still problems, but probably more skill dependent factions. So you have Thousand Suns, 33 players, 44.4% of the meta, a 54.6% win rate, 2 event wins, 3 top 4s, 7 top 10s, and a 0.94 for overrep. I think Thousand Suns might just be a faction where skill is actually a bigger portion of that, because that's a lot of event wins for a faction post data slate, and a pretty good win rate. Then right under them is Necrons, who have still a 9% meta representation, despite getting nerfs in the most recent slate, a 53.8% win rate, 3 event wins, 9 top 4s, 18 top 10s for a 1.4 overrep. So, Necrons getting nerfed doesn't really seem to have done a terrible lot to them, other than push them out of having every other faction's GT win count shoved into their GT win count.
There's only been 12 events, 18 events, you said?
18.
It's hard to win. Hard to win all of them when there's not that many.
They could win 10. I don't know. They could, but they won't. Outside of them, we have GT wins from somebody playing Chaos Space Marines, who had a 53.3 in event win, 2 top 4s and 5 top 10s. And then the other new book is Orcs, 6.7% of the meta, 52.2% win rate, 3 event wins, 10 top 4s, 14 top 10s, and a 2.08 for overrep. Also, potentially
when Orcs have an
problem.
overrep of 0.5, something's going wrong, because that faction's usually down in the dregs.
It's true. And there's still time for that faction to kind of catch up with
more people to learn
maybe
how to play
some of
into
the...
it. There's always the other side of it.
Yeah. There's like a little bit of equilibration still. We're only looking at 2 weeks of data. One of those weeks is not like a particularly large data set. So we're kind of at like 1.5 weeks of data, really, realistically. And then Tau won an event.
Is going to be very busy. So,
yep. And then Tau did win an event. I can't remember if that was this last weekend or the weekend before, though, because if it was this last weekend, it was with the new book, probably. If it was the weekend before, it probably wasn't. They had a 48.4% win rate, 1 event win, 3 top 4s, and 8 top 10s for a 0.78 across those 2 weeks. We'll see what happens with Tau. Their points kind of seem like a limiting factor in them being like an overpowered faction.
They seem good, but not insane.
It was using the old book. It was actually Daniele, the Gemini from Italy, winning with Tau, winning the Conquest Italia showdown.
Gotcha. Then the last GT winning faction is Dark Angels, who are actually also our worst faction for the 2 weeks. 18 players, 2.4% of the meta, a 31.7% win rate, 1 event win, 1 top 4, which is that event win, and 2 top 10s, which also includes that event win for a 0.58 overrep. I don't know what to say about it. Yeah, that's not really Lion storming the meta there.
It was Ironstorm that he won with, though.
It's true.
I'm real good enough to see play in any detachment.
Right above them is Chaos Knights, 2.5% of the meta, a 38.1% win rate, 4 top 10s. And then Space Marines, 6% of the meta, 39.2% win rate, 2 top 4s, 7 top 10s for a 0.46. Interesting to see Leagues of Votann here. They're fourth from the bottom, 2.7% of the meta, a 41.5% win rate, and 4 top 10s. And then our other new book, Adeptus Custodes, 25 players, a 3.3% meta representation, which is like a third. That's them dropping 2/3 of their meta representation, basically. A 43.2% win rate and 1 top 4, 4 top 10s for a 0.42 meta over-rep ratio. Right above them is Astra Militarum, and then Tyranids, and then Deathwatch, who had 2 players for a 0.3%. At a certain point, I'm just gonna stop including Deathwatch at all in any of our considerations.
I'm impressed they
I
had
think
2 players.
So many factions.
They're both playing Blackspear too.
Oh man!
Shout out to those guys for trying real hard, like keeping the fluff alive, showing that we're not all just whack bastards.
And then the funniest faction placement is Eldari. 39 players, 5.2% of the meta, 46.5% win rate, 3 top 4s, 9 top 10s, and a 0.8.
Are Eldari balanced?
Maybe. They could be. They're definitely in that window now. We'll find out. Keep an eye on this channel for another 2 weeks when we get our 4-week rolling averages going. We can kind of see where things are at. But yeah, I mean, there's some problematic signs kind of here. It doesn't look like Necrons were nerfed like all that particularly hard at the end. Orcs are getting up there in overrep, getting up there in event wins. Already with the book just basically in contention. Grey Knights are definitely a problem given win rate and overrep and the number of events that they're winning. You still have Thousand Sons and Sisters kind of like floating around, picking up multiple GT wins and stuff like that. So we'll see how the meta evolves, I guess, right? CSM are coming in and they're going to throw it all akimbo anyways in a week.
Chain swords in the meta of
chain swords.
Spoons. I don't really know. I forgot how that saying goes. It's been too long. Hammers the meta of nails. There we go. Got that.
There you go.
I'm so smart.
But yeah, that's kind of it from a stats standpoint. Nothing really to talk about after 2 weeks. Kind of not really any firm conclusions we can make. Just a bunch of yellow flags, things to keep an eye on.
What
basically,
if instead of not making firm conclusions, we were hyper reactionary and said things that we don't mean?
I think Grey Knights need radical changes immediately. There you go. There's my hot take.
Agreed. Dread Knights back down to 205 or whatever they were before.
Well, it wasn't point changes. Remember, it was profile changes that buffed them.
Yeah, I know. Yep. I think you should just revert the point changes. And just pure chaos. Fuck it. It's the worst thing can happen.
Undo all the weapon profile changes.
Oh, no, they were so struggle bus before.
I don't care.
Make Dread Knight hammers give your opponent heavy cover. You can dodge the Grey Hammer. It's not hitting.
Heavy side cannons give you cover now. They give you cover even if you're in the open.
Give the GMNDK the epic hero keyword.
I don't even think that fixes much.
That means they can only take 4 maximum hulls, and they also can't give relics or enhancements to the Grandmaster.
How about we Legends Land Raider Redeemers? That's Legends. That whole data sheet. Data sheet gets yeeted into the sky. We're done with Land Raider Redeemers. They can't be balanced, so they can't exist.
I mean, they were balanced for their entire rest of their existence by being terrible, if that counts.
Yep. I think other than that, I think the meta is like maybe okay. We're gonna see what happens with the orcs, right? Orcs are probably Meganobs are too cheap.
Yeah, Meganobs are too cheap, but I also think they're one of the more interesting ways for a unit to be overpowered. In the sense that they are very static. They do, I know they advance in charge, but they don't go through screens. They don't fly like wraiths. Like if there was an archetype of that data sheet to be busted, that's the version I'm the most happy to see.
No, busted. I agree with. They're a slow-moving, durable, somewhat killy, but usually not unit. And generally speaking, we know how to deal with that.
Exactly. They are kiteable. They are manageable even if it's not fun. Like, you can deal with a Meganob squad. They are not literally immortal in the same way that some things can
They
be.
can
They die
sure
at the
feel that way sometimes, but
yes. When your opponent just doesn't want to fail that last 4-up against all your 1 damage shooting that's going through, and you're just pairing with them with las cannons, you're like, please just kill this one Meganob so that I can fire my las cannons at it. It's very frustrating. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the game is healthier for them existing, but I think if we had to have a version of that data sheet, I don't think like we need emergency point changes on Meganobs. I think the game will be fine if they stuck around in their current state until the next balance day slate. I don't think it would kill anything particularly. It'd be annoying. I would prefer them to get emergency changed.
Yeah.
But I don't think like it needs it. This isn't decannons, right?
No, this isn't so bad that I think like the game is inherently like terrible because of it. They do move 5 inches, right? And they advance in charge twice, which isn't amazing. They are consistent damage dealers, I think, rather than like amazing damage dealers. And if you have -1 damage access, you just put a -1 damage unit into them. Suddenly they don't do damage anymore.
or you hit them with a unit of gaunts and say, have fun.
Yeah, you're going to be fighting your way out of this unit forever. You're never leaving, and you're going to be out OC'd the whole time. So congratulations on not being anywhere near where you need to be.
Yeah, I do think they're still a little too cheap. But having played into them a few times now, I think that they're manageable.
Yeah, I have them as they're too cheap in a way that is manageable. Like I can play into Bully Boys and have a game with most armies that aren't like heavily reliant on mass like AP0. You know, trying to kill them with Arcoflagellants is an exercise in misery, and I'm sorry if that's the life you're living.
Sure,
but
put Vol back in your list and have fun.
Exactly. I mean, Vol is already, Vol was terrible to Custodes, but really good into Necrons. Like, that's the kind of place that it's okay to beat, right, in the new changes. So,
yeah,
I think it's fine. And yeah, there's some what I call in there. Like, they're slow moving, but they go into good transport and they advance charge. But you know what? Comparatively to the rest of the stuff that's good in Warhammer right now, that is generally fairly slow moving. In a transport that doesn't go through walls, as a unit that doesn't shoot, doesn't play in an army that shoots,
and it's generally not very durable transport either.
Yeah, I mean the battle wagon can be,
sure, but that's like what 3 times the price of a truck.
Sure, yeah, but there is an option that you could take. But in general, I think compared to wraiths with reactive move and lone operative strat and being the durability they are the entire game, they are a more manageable price point for what they are. Do I think they should stay that way? Yep. No, but I don't think it's. I think the bigger problem from that book is more likely to be boys at the points they are than it is because that list is very much more polarizing than Bully Boys with the Green Tide list. But
I love Green Tide.
The stats.
I do think Green Tide is better than Bully Boys, but Bully Boys is easier to bring out immediately than Green Tide is.
I mean,
and
Green Tide
more
also
people
shit out of Bully Boys.
Yeah. I also think people are just incredibly Horde adverse for playing because of clock purposes. And like playing 120 boys can like really fuck up your clock management if you're not good with your clock management.
So this is the funny thing. Side tangent here on this. Horde armies aren't necessarily hard for you to play quickly. The problem is that people they can be, but a lot of people pick up the army and say, I've got to shoot all my shooters. I got to make sure that I use all my sluggers. I got to make sure that, every single one of these things is like, you generally don't. You can play a Horde army very quickly. We have locals who can play like Horde armies faster than most people can play knights. What tends to slow the game down is when your opponent tries to kill you. And the decision-making challenges that your opponent finds themselves in can often be the bigger issue.
There's also stuff like pulling casualties in the correct ways and deciding where you're taking casualties. Like,
yes.
If your opponent wants to make you play slower with a Horde, it is quite easy to be like, all right, who are you taking saves on? Where are you starting? What end are you starting on? You don't get to know how many you're losing before you start taking saves and things like that. Like if you just roll like 10 saves in a batch and you just try, all right, I lost 10, cool, I'll pull these 10. Like technically I'd be like, which side are you starting at? Blah, blah. You can get like quite finicky, especially over stuff like coherency as well. Like a lot of the time it's just, hey, I'm going to fix this at the end of the turn. Do you mind if I just put this down roughly where they need to be and I'll sort it later? There is definitely ways that you can find that some of the shortcuts you take as a Horde player are ones that if your opponent is, following the letter of the rules, can slow you down.
Yep, that's fair.
I also think it does
a lot of power
require
in your opponent's hands. I don't think it's the best.
I also think it does require you to get a lot of practice, with your army, and that's hard sometimes to do. for your average player. I think if you're talking about like the 5 best orc players in the world or something like that, then yeah, they're not going to have a problem managing 120 orc boys all the time, or even somebody who's just well practiced with that faction will be able to manage it just fine. But you need to practice managing your clock if you're going to play that army into GT like ahead of time.
Yeah,
on both sides.
You can't just pick up a Horde army and expect to be good with it. You need to do the work.
Yep. Okay. And then, yeah, maybe Thousand Suns might be quietly a problem, but we'll find out if that evolves into one.
I think they probably are. I've been playing them more and more the last little while, and
quietly a problem.
This army is very funny.
Yeah, I know. I saw you fiddling with Magnus in the corner for a while. Yeah, that army is really good and is really good into orcs.
Yes. In terms of why they're a problem right now, I think the simple answer is they do the thing that armies should never really do, which is break all the rules of 40k, moving out of sequence, on-demand access to free strats, turning off things like armor save, so like low AP or AP nothing attacks suddenly mean something. Yeah, there's definitely some challenges there.
Yep.
And it can be very difficult to balance an army that can do all of that around an ever-evolving meta.
Yeah. I don't know how you would fix the faction either. I don't have an idea yet. It would take too much. I'm also not a game designer, so
yeah, none of us.
I can identify problems. I can't fix them. You know.
Yes,
it's true.
I can go to them and say, "Here, this is what is issue." I don't know how.
Yeah, I can't. I'm not here to fix
the
it.
dev wounds bit. The dev wounds bit on that chapter tactic. Just remove it. Just
all right.
lethal or sustained. Good luck.
Isn't the
speed
dev wounds bit their detachment ability?
Yeah, just remove that bit.
Just remove the whole bit.
Just
only if I get sustained 2 instead.
No, fuck them. Sustained or lethal. Good luck. It's CSM, but you don't have to work for it. Like, come on, what's the problem? Can you imagine CSM could dark pack for dev wounds? Like,
speaking of that, let's talk about the CSM book.
let's talk about the CSM book.
How do we want to start fighting from dev wounds except once per game on one unit?
Oh, poor possessed.
Poor possessed. Godspeed, you guys. Good luck in 10. Good luck in 11th edition.
Yeah, you had your moment in the sun.
You had like 3 weeks where it was maybe kind of interesting.
Actually, that's not true. You play Tau.
Doesn't the Magifier give you like free strat, counteroffensive, or go to ground or something?
Maybe.
I'm sure one of them does something like that. There'll be Odd Sisters strat with 3. It's on a terrible character that you would never run, but it'll exist, and that makes Ashley wrong, and I value that.
Yeah, but Ashley plays Tau, and they do have free strats through the Shaper or whatever.
All right, how do we want to structure this chat then about CSM?
Do we quickly want to talk about initial thoughts now that the book's out and reviews are out? Just general, like, high-level stuff of what we think is cool, and then take like a little bit more focused approach of here's a chapter I like, here's where I like it, move from there.
I like it.
I guess I'll kick it off. I've had this book for a little while now, courtesy of writing for Goonhammer, but yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. It very much feels like the Orc book in that it has a lot of ways to play the army. Similar to the Orc book, it doesn't feel, I'm going to be very careful in the words here, it doesn't feel broken. There are sections of it that feel very strong and definitely are going to potentially need some adjusting. But it very much feels like they looked at it and said, okay, how do CSM players like playing their armies? Let's give them a detachment that gives each one of them at least the capacity to play that. That's where I sit with it right now. Ennis, you're making faces at me.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I really don't like this book. So, that's not true. I like aspects of it. It's for the factions I play, it's the best book that's come out this edition. So between Tyranids, Space Marines, and now CSM. In that it has detachments to do a bunch of cool things and cool stuff like that. But I think that a lot of the detachments have really, really stupid hoops you have to jump through to make them playable, and that also have a lot of, I would almost say, too much capacity for your opponent to play around them very easily.
Yeah, but Innis, it's a chaos book.
Sure, and that's fine, and it can be that, but I am still allowed to express my disappointment with that fact.
Oh, I know.
For example, the Renegade Raiders detachment that people are very high on. I detest everything about the detachment because I keep reading it and I'm like, this is designed to bully people who do not know how to play Warhammer and will be terrible at the top tables, because I can't imagine a single instance where I ever use the full hit and wound reroll stratagem on a unit that matters against an opponent with a brainstem. And like, that's the reason to play the detachment. And I don't want to do that because it's a detachment that makes me better at killing my opponent's trucks, but not their mega knobs, because the mega knobs are never going to be on an objective, and I don't like that. Now, there is power in the detachment. The assault ability is really cool. It'll help you be up on your opponent's chaff, and you can commit less. And like, it's still powerful, and it's still a good detachment. But I hate that like that bit is there, and it makes you, because it means that detachment will be utterly turbo stomping the mid tables, because it's going to be fucking wild when your opponent stands their units on objectives. And at WTC, it will do nothing, because you will go into your game and your opponent will go, cool, so there is a dude on that objective. Would you like to expose your unit to kill it? Or you'll lose your Rhino on turn 1 or turn 2, and you don't have a stratagem suite anymore. And I hate that. I hate that aspect of the design. I would rather it was a worse stratagem with less conditions. And the problem is that in every detachment, there's like 3 or 4 stratagems that are like that, or the warlord trait ability is like that, or the detachment rule is like that. And it's just hoop after hoop after hoop of bullshit to jump through. The Night Lord's detachment, everything is battleshock triggered, or half below half strength trigger, where you don't need stratagems anyway. It's like, why couldn't there just be like a version of the strat that you could just use regularly, and then it got better if they were battle shocked? Like, I'll give you a thing to do. You know, if the Red Corsairs one was reroll hits when you disembark from a transport, reroll wounds if they're on objective as well. Like something, and make it 2 CP at that point, right? Because it's it's a less conditional, more powerful stratagem. I really don't like that like side of the design process. I also think that a lot of the detachments are, for me, missing kind of the tools that I would want to see. So Pact Bound losing Armory Contempt is really annoying, because it was a thing that was in that, and the strategy that replaces it is terrible, and it's a very real nerf to that detachment. All the shooting detachments just kind of lacking access to fall back and shoot or advance and shoot, so there's no way to like really make your shooting things do more, like be more active in the game, and it makes it a very binary play style, right? That's one of the only interesting things about Ironstorm, is that it does have access to a burst of speed here and there, but it's one that you can play around. You can try to kill the character, draw units away from it, wrap and tag and restrict it. Whereas in like the Soulforge Warpack, it's just do thing, shoot hard, cool. If that doesn't work, lose game. There's nothing for you and your opponent to interact with, right? You're not fighting over a resource. You either lose to the damage check or you do not lose to the damage check. And I think that that's frustrating. And I wish there was more agency on the CSM player side that wasn't your opponent makes a mistake or your opponent's list doesn't meet a certain criteria. Warp Talons being a great example of that, right? Your Warp Talons will either murder something and fuck off, or they will charge in and they will stand there and they will die, or they will smite themselves and miss a kill. And like, none of that is your decision making as a CSM player, right? It's just, did your unit smite itself? Did your unit fail to kill a target? Or is your unit the most broken thing in the game? Because if you charge something with a 10 Warp Talon sword and just kills it and leaves, it's utterly absurd. And you Rapid Ingress back in, or you use Deceptors +3 charge, whatever. Or you fail to kill the target and your army turns off. And I hate that design process. I like a much more graded and like gradual like decision making process. But yeah, I played like a couple of games with Raiders, and it was the most disappointing thing I've ever done. Looking at the 3 Mega Knob squads stood next to an objective, and the truck that you get abilities against is heartbreaking. And then you charge in with a chosen squad, and you're like, this is a bunch of strength 5 attacks, and you fail to kill the truck because it's not an objective. And you're like, well, this is just like, I can't do anything about this. There's nothing I can do that gives me agency over the situation besides shoot harder. And cool, I don't want to play shoot harder the CSM army.
No, all fair points. I do want to address, Victor brought up in the chat something, was addressing one of the points that you made, which was, I must be a spoon brain for thinking my opponent will need to be on an objective to win. The point that Dennis was making here is that they can put a trash or a slightly less good unit on the objective. You're better at killing the stuff that's on the objective, but you're worse at killing stuff that's off the objective, where they're equally good at killing you either way.
Yeah, the idea here is that if you've been playing CSM with Slaves to Darkness, now Pac-Man Zealots, and you've been hitting people with Legionnaire squads with crit 5s, and you've been killing things, and then you take that unit that was killing things, and now you charge it into a truck that's on an objective in Renegade Raiders that you now have +1 AP and full rules to hit and wound against, and you kill it real dead. Great. But did you need those benefits to kill that truck? Did you need that benefit to kill 5 Immortals, the Scarabs, the 5 Scouts? You were killing all that stuff anyway. So the only situation that your detachment benefits ever kick in is when you can force your opponent to make a play. So you make them walk onto the objective, which is for sure definitely a thing that you can do, and it is the way to make this attachment work. Is I trade onto your objective unit, I force you to charge me, I charge you back, and I like develop into that trading game, which is fine. That's a valid approach, but it is not on you to. It's on you to instigate that, and it's a difficult thing to force your opponent to play that way if they don't want to, especially if they have any amount of shooting in the list. Like it'll be fine against bully boys once you've killed everything that isn't a truck, that isn't a mega knob. But into wraiths, for example, not as easy a play. But you don't need help to kill those small units, and you're getting no help. You're doing, in fact, less damage than you were before, and you don't have access to crit 5s, and you don't have access to Profane Zeal. You don't have access to the Nurgle strat, so you're more interactable back. Like, it's just all, for me, like, all downside once you move away from the index detachment. I think the index detachment is, like, better than every detachment that's in this book. And I think the data sheets are better in that version. So I think this is a worse codex than the index, which is fine. It is a objectively good thing to move away from that stupid book and all the problems it caused. But I think that people who are coming at me like, this is the new Thousand Sons, Bully Boys, Necrons, Canoptic Court combined. I mean, like, CSM are nuts. Like, CSM are going to be like an A-tier book, and that's fine. But it's going to be an A-tier book because it'll beat up on some strategies very well. It'll have fundamental problems in others, and there's a lot of play to it. Because, yeah, your opponent will make mistakes. You can force them to make mistakes. But it's not easy to do, and it definitely requires some finesse. Yeah, as Al says, how do you balance CSM between a detachment that has sustained 5s and lethal 5s and a detachment that doesn't have it with the same data sheets? And your units just do 30% more damage in Pac-Man Zealots, unless you can jump through all of the 17 hoops your detachment has set out for you. And if you can figure out how to jump through all the hoops, it'll be great. And in team pairings, that'll be really easy. You'll pair it into lists that have to stand real units on objectives. Good luck, Grey Knights. You know, you've got Terminators and Dread Knights. They're standing on objectives. I don't really care. I'll murder them dead. Yep. But into other armies where you don't have control of that, or in singles, it'll be very good at beating up on weaker players or people who make unforced mistakes. Man. Also, holy shit, Chosen are ridiculously stupid outside of exactly Pac-Man Zealots. They do no fucking damage. It is absurd how little that unit does. I have never had a Chosen and Lord squad.
I mean, when you hop through the hoops, they're good in Raiders, but that's about it.
I mean, even then, sometimes. But yes, I have never had a unit of Chosen where the Lord failed to kill something in their weight class, and I had them in 2 or 3 games. I've had them not successfully kill something yet in their weight class. Like, they are only punching down.
It's funny because I think that this codex got all of the flavor that the Orc Codex got for its detachments. Like, all of its detachments, very flavorful. It has all the cool stuff. Each detachment feels unique. It feels like each detachment also got the supporting like things to do the thing that it's supposed to be good at. But I think, going back to your original point, the book isn't as successful as the Orc book, because what is important is that like all of the Orc stratagems have like a base version that gets better during like WAS typically, right? For like Bully Boys specifically, or they have like a condition in which the stratagem is better effectively.
Yeah. So like Green Tide has the, if you're 10 or more models, do this instead. Bully Boys has the in the wall, add this. Dread Mob has the, hey, push it. You might hurt yourself more, but you get extra benefits.
Yeah, and the CSM book lacks that.
You must do the thing to get the thing at all. There is no gradation to the stratagems. It's just, if you've met the criteria, it works. And if you didn't, it doesn't. Fucking you figure it out.
If it's May and it's the blood moon and the 50th person has been sacrificed at the table across from you, then you get to kill everything all at once and table your opponent. But
it's hilarious that started out as a joke, and it is just the CSM design philosophy.
I mean, it is just the chaos design philosophy. Let's be totally honest with ourselves here. Is the chaos books have always been a little chaotic.
Now, can I say my two favorite detachments in Soulforge Warpack and Deceptors are the two that don't have hoops to jump through and actually just work on rate, and it's why I like them because they just do their job.
Deceptors.
It's
I
fine.
was
going to
choose those two as well.
I'll do. You can do Soulforge then. I'll do. I mean, I just don't want to do Pact Bound.
I'm gonna do
I'll
Fellhammer.
I'll do Veterans.
I'm just gonna do.
It's fine.
Oh, fine. I will do Deceptors then because it amuses the fuck out of me.
No,
Jeremy, go for it, Nathan.
Deceptors.
No. Nathan can go for it. I can pick another one. I don't mind.
I hate you all.
Okay, I like Deceptors though for dumb reasons that are absolutely ridiculous, and it's just one stratagem in that detachment that makes me happy, and that's it. The only thing I like about Deceptors is that I can blow up my opponent's vehicles. I have a character within 18 inches. I blow up that Land Raider. It's doing D6 more wounds to
It's so funny against
Tau.
Tau. Everything in Tau is D6.
Oh, isn't it?
It's the Silent King Titanic.
No.
D6 plus 3 mortal wounds to your whole army.
He's D6 plus 3? I thought he was D6 plus 2.
No, he's D6 plus 3.
He explodes for more than a knight does.
Yeah, he blows up big.
He's got a katana in his roof.
He does. He has a katana in his ceiling, and it blows up real big.
Does he blow up more than a monolith?
I think so, yes.
Probably.
He's always blown up too much, but like he used to blow up on a 4-up, I think, in 9th edition was what he did. Is he blow up on a 4-up for D6 mortal wounds on everything around him?
Maybe, but he so rarely died.
I mean, I killed him with Haywire Bikes and Harlequins a lot, and it made my opponent real sad repeatedly when I did it.
Seismic Cannons did it just fine.
Yeah,
that's fair.
We were playing an RTT, and on turn 1, I flew bikes over and fired a squad of bikes, and he blew up turn 1 and then killed like a third of my opponent's army in one explosion. He was like, I concede. And I was like, I understand.
Only Reptides are D6 now. Devilfish Hulls got moved down to D5. That's a shame.
Lame.
There's still 3 Reptides in every build. So,
but the
also,
only thing
crisis units explode.
Monoliths are Titanic though, so it doesn't matter about Monolith exploding.
Yeah, so it's only non-Titanic units. You can't blow up people's knights. You can't blow up monoliths and vaults and things like that. But you can blow up everything else. And for 1 CP to do the thing that I want to do anyways, and it just needs to be within 18 inches of a character, like that's fine. I love the idea of just blowing up my opponent's shit for a CP. And it's really the most efficient use of CP ever. 1 CP to cause D3 mortal wounds within 6 inches of everything is still a good way to spend CP if that vehicle only blows up for D3 instead of D6.
Especially if it's surrounded by a whole bunch of 1 wound models that don't have a feel no pain.
Yep. So like
anyway, from all sides is just advance and charge, right? Like in early turns, the plus 1 to charge for each other unit to charge. It's a battle tactic advance and charge that you roll the 3 on your advance. And like
I didn't even realize it's a battle tactic. That's hilarious.
Good. I love that stratagem.
It's
the reason I like Deceptors. It just you can just chosen or your legionnaires, they just charge at +3, and your warp talents from reserve just charge at +3 while your other squad rapid ingress.
So the thing that I love about Deceptors is the enhancement falsehood. Because you can get into so many shenanigans with this thing. They're not good necessarily, but they are funny. So for anyone who hasn't read it, I'm going to give you the Cole's notes of it. You can only put it on a Chaos Lord, and it can't be a Terminator or a Jump Pack model. So it's basically just the foot guy. And then during declared battle reserves, if you want to use this, he starts in strat reserves. And then in the reinforcement step of any of your movement phases, he can then suddenly appear by killing either a legionary or chosen model and then attach to that unit, replacing that model. It's not particularly good, but it's very funny when you can get things like 7-inch reserve charges. Because
so it depends exactly on how events are ruling as close as possible. Because if you're going to the in-card ruling, which is center to center, it's only +1. If it's edge to edge, you can get further.
No, because the Lord's on a 40 mil base, and since you are killing the model of your choice, you create a little circle of models with the middle one as being the one that you kill, which means he can't fit there because he's on a 40 mil base, so he has to go outside.
This is triangles again, and I kind of love it, but it's very funny.
There are even sketchier ways where you can do it, where you can have like a row of 32 mil bases that you can't actually fit anywhere, but incoherency 2 full inches out.
Yeah, I wish it didn't.
This
kill
is
them
what
all.
happens when
That's
you
the
give
bit
me a
that I don't
codex that
like.
has really silly rules in it, like Deceptors. This is why I like them, because there's going to be a bunch of shit in here that gets, one, misplayed, but also two, people are going to find the really broken things you can do.
But the main thing is you can +2 to charge that guy as well and have a 4.
You can. So I think the math that I worked out for is that from reserves, you can have a 5-inch charge. No, 1, 2, 3. Yeah,
It's a
5-inch charge with +3 on it.
So an unfailable deep strike charge, essentially.
Oh, you mean like with a 10-man where you ring it, basically?
Not ring it. This is the in a line, can't fit anywhere but max coherency 2 inches away. Because then
We
you're
have to do a
gaining
diagram
2
for
full
it.
inches and a 40 mil base on your distance.
Yeah, I'm
where that
not
one
sure
model
how
was
you're setting up so that you.
This is the definition of the jump through 3 hoops to make something happen for chaos in this particular
This
case.
isn't jumping
But
through hoops.
you
This is
at least
inventing
made
hoops.
this happen.
This is inventing hoops. Let's be real.
Yeah.
The other thing that I love about Deceptors, before we jump into another detachment, because I feel like that's where we're moving, is it just has some fun other stratagem things that are like just nonsensical that just fuck with your opponent's life. 1 CP for Infiltrator Deep Strike Denial Aura is fun. 12-inch Denial Bubble.
12-inch Denial Bubble on a 20-man cultist brick that covers the whole board.
18 Accursed Cultists with a commune.
Yep.
Yeah, that would work too. Why not just
really
do 20
good.
cultists with a commune instead?
Because 18 cultists are tankier. 18 Accursed Cultists are tankier because they get feel no pain. They'll actually.
I think the thing about this detachment that just makes me happy the most is it's just the trolliest bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about some weird factions. So like it's what I loved about Harlequins is I got to just troll my opponent all the time with random bullshit like falling out of combat back into things and stuff like that, just making them sad. And so Deceptors is just the make my opponent sad repeatedly detachment. And so it has like a special place in my heart because of it.
You know there's someone who is just going to infiltrate 30 legionaries and 60 cultists and hope to go first 5 games in a row.
What a hero. I think the last kind of things I want to touch on with this detachment.
Yep.
Relentless Pursuit, which is the reactive move stratagem, is just a flat 6. It is messed up. Reactive moving with Abaddon is a thing that nobody should have to experience in their life, and something that I have done to people multiple times now. And dear God, I'm so sorry, all of them. Abaddon just sliding away from you, so that you're now on an unmakeable charge, and then immediately slamming back into you with +3 is the saddest thing I've ever seen for somebody.
Yep.
And it also has one of the fall back and shoot stratagems of this book, which means that it actually supports vehicles fairly well.
Nice.
I like this detachment. This is the one that I would probably play in singles. How I was going to play CSN right now.
Oh no, I'm like so amused by just blowing up people's vehicles. That's all I need. That's all I needed in life.
It's definitely there. I've not used it in 3 games, but I'm sure Godspeed it exists. I keep
don't
killing
care
things in
in
combat and being like, I don't want to use it on.
There's
your
just
Land
the
Raiders
psychological damage you do to your opponent by being like, yeah, for 1 CP, I can blow up any of your vehicles.
Yeah.
Look, it's psychological warfare on multiple levels. You just have to tell your opponent about it ahead of time. Be like, look, I can just blow up your vehicles if I'm close enough. And then all their stuff gets spaced out weirdly and inappropriately so that they never take explosion damage.
That's something we should probably touch on. First of all, Paint Celestine, the Exalted Champion doesn't exist anymore. That is no longer a data sheet. So you can't have an Abaddon scope with an Exalted Champion. Second, the Dark Commune has really weird wording that I think is exactly to stop Soul Link, where the rule for the Dark Commune's 5-up invulnerable save and its advance and charge and +1 to charge, or +1 to hit and wound, are linked to having a cult demagogue keyword model alive in the squad, which means that there is no way to share that over without
actually have the data sheet ability.
That too, like it's a mess. That model is weird. I'm sitting there thinking, like, what if that guy steals someone's data sheet abilities? Does the rest of the commune keep the rest of them, and I can have all of them?
Yes.
So Dark Commune with free battle tactic, for example. And he goes,
I don't like any of that. I don't like the enhancement Soul Link. It makes my brain hurt a little bit. I won't lie.
So the Dark Commune doesn't really work with it. I think Soul Link is kind of a mess as well. I think there's just not enough good stuff to do with it.
The only thing I could think of would be, I mean, I guess you could give yourself +1 advance and charge.
So there are 2 vaguely interesting things I find to do with it. One is running the Terminator Sorcerer solo with like the stealth and low up enhancement or whatever, right? He's the guy that point clicks and says +1 AP against the target on a 2+. And then you sideline that ability over to like a Dark Commune Sergeant as well, and he points and clicks at something as well, or you put it onto a Chaos Sword that's not charging this turn, and you point and click at 2 things, you get +1 AP against both. I think it's a named keyword ability, so I don't think it double stacks, but I don't know that one off the top of my head.
I can tell you in a second. I have that data sheet open.
Vaguely interesting in that context of getting that guy. He also, that guy gives reroll to advance and charge, so it's not too bad on like a chosen squad that's already used its thing. Master Execution with the Kill Sword Go button is another like fairly obvious one, but I just don't really rate Master Executions even with that. The other one that I think is kind of interesting is you can run like a solo Jump Lord who just steals the Chaos Lord's ability and then goes in with +1 damage on his Lightning Claws basically, and he just goes in with like fairly messy Lightning Claws to blind the backfield unit. But I think it's just worse than those sort of Warp Talons, so it's hard to justify. I think the Master Execution, Dark Commune stealing the Sorcerer's ability is probably the way I would approach it, because you can just have like, if he goes in with a squad of Cultists or Cursed Communes, just going +1 AP on all their weapons and their +1 to advance and charge turn, because as I understand it, the other 4 guys in the squad still have that data sheets abilities, so you can still use the advance and charge and the +1 to charge.
Yeah, I think that is the case.
So really weird
like the Shroud of I kind of like the Shroud just as an option to give somebody Lona, but it's probably too expensive to make it really work maybe appropriately.
That's the other thing. We don't really have points on these yet because they're not in the MFM and not anywhere, right? So, like, they're in the book, but
yeah, and we know that book points are fake.
Book points are fake. All right, who wants to talk about the next attachment, and why is it Jeremy wanting to talk about Soulforged?
Jeremy,
why am I talking about Soulforged? I was going to choose something else.
Okay, I'll do Soulforged because I love Soulforged. All right. I played a few games with it. All right, Soulforged is not a good detachment, but it definitely has rules that work, and I think that makes it a very interesting detachment. It is not in this copy of rules I have. Give me 1 second. Pull it up.
I have it in front of me if you want me to read it.
I have it to hand. I just need to go and actually find where I left it because I don't have it in the same place as I have the other stuff.
Okay.
So the main thing with Soulforged is it rewards you very heavily for playing on a knife edge, and I really, really appreciate that. I think it's quite funny. There is like you take -1 leadership on your Dark Pact tests, and in return you get a benefit +2 attack to melee or +1 to wound in range. Very, very relevant buff on a lot of CSM shooting data sheets. It's demon vehicle keyword only, but you can extend demon keyword to other vehicles. Notably, probably Vindicators and Predators being the ones that you're most likely to use that on. Although giving a Land Raider the ability to move through walls is goddamn hilarious, and disgorging Abaddon and 10 Chosen is a thing I will do in an RTT one time. Remember how the Land Raider has the ability to get units out after it disembarks, and then they can charge.
Jeremy doesn't like any of this, but we're going to continue doing it anyways. This is the Soulforged detachment is my second most favorite detachment in this book for a wide variety of reasons.
So the main gimmick here is that you run Tempting Addendum, which basically, when you would take mortal wounds from your Dark Pacts with one of those vehicles, you take an extra one, so you on average do 3 damage to yourself. And bearing in mind, at Leadership 7, you are 44% chance to fail every Dark Pact you take. So very basically, for every 5 vehicles you shoot, 2 or 3 of them are going to take 3 damage. Before you include like hazardous checks on Forge Fiends, you do a lot of damage to yourself with this detachment. I would say comfortably play over like each of the 2 games I played with this, I was doing upwards of 30 damage to myself a game. On major vehicles. Now, some of that's getting healed back up by Warsmiths, some of it's getting prevented by the Feel No Pain enhancement, but it is messy. You take a lot of damage. In return, you do a lot of damage. And if you enjoy playing on that knife edge, I think Vastor has a lot of interesting agency for you there. Don't run Vastor in it. I tried him. He gains nothing from this detachment. The +1 strike that you
he can't make he doesn't. He has no debt to the Soulforged. He's the Soulforged king.
But yeah, broadly, the stratagems aren't great. I basically was using move through walls, make things vehicle, and Overwatch and Command Reroll, and that was it. I wasn't really like. There's a +1 AP stratagem which is good situationally. There's a healing one for vehicles that if you could use it on a Lord of Skulls, it'd be hilarious, but you can't. And there's a reactive move that's kind of terrible, and like a no fallback one
forces you to move towards your opponent.
Yeah, it's a really stressful reactive move. Not gonna lie. Now, the fact that you can use it on a Lord of Skulls, tempting.
It's free movement.
I think this is a detachment that like a Lord of Skulls is genuinely kind of interesting in, mostly because the Lord of Skulls on WC terrain is less than 6 inches wide, which means it can go from one side of the plate to the other with its 8-inch move quite comfortably, while being hidden on both sides. So I did build, like I said, I built a lot of skulls today. I really like this detachment in the sense that I think it's thematically bad. That's kind of how I would describe it. It's a detachment that is cool, that works, that rewards you playing on a very like push the button, knife edge play style. But it also is like I think it's lacking a lot of tools to fundamentally be a powerful army, like the things I was talking about before, like advance and shoot or fall back and shoot. It's just very much you have to play counter charge, which means that you are drawing away from the main draw of the army. You're going to have to play like Chosen or Legionnaires or Abaddon or some of the pretty bad melee data sheets like Mauler-Fiends or Venom Crawlers. Venom Crawlers are okay, but Mauler-Fiends are kind of terrible, especially with losing some of their benefits in the updated version. So I like it. I think it's fun. I've played 2 games with it, and they were both an absolute blast. Being able to just have like a Venom Crawler, like being sat there getting move blocked, and you'd be like, what if I just walked over those containers, just like scuttled over it, and then charged into my opponent's backfield? Great fun. I wish that stratagem would let you go for models, because Knights of Shade does, and that one doesn't, and I think that's a shame. But yeah, I really like this. I think it's good fun.
Yeah, no, it's solid. It's fun. I think 2 of the enhancements are fine.
Yeah, I mean, the +4 movement one would be really cool if Lord Discordance had the Wordsmith keyword still, but they don't. And Soul Harvester is I ran Soul Harvester on a Chaos Lord to just like run him in and farm it occasionally. Like sometimes you would just like the turn you jammed him in, if like you shot 2 units to death near him and you charged the 3rd one, you had a good chance of like gaining a CP out of him, and that was fine. Yeah.
Paint Celestine has a good point. 1, you pay that CP for your Land Rider to drive through walls while a Tyranid Norn emissary stares on an envy.
To be fair, a Tyranid Norn emissary is staring at everything in envy, just up to including anything that has AP3. So, Strength 9
Detachment also has a +1 AP strat.
It does, which David Gaylord in his review definitely said that's Armor of Contempt and moved on. I wish it was Armor of Contempt.
I think this detachment is incredibly flavorful and a lot of fun. Yeah. And I also think you're going to kill your own shit just so much.
No, if you want to play this detachment, the real sauce is Abaddon and a squad of Chosen just starting your list, and you just pick fucking reroll pact tests from him, and you're just like the saddest you've ever been. But he gives you counter charge. You can sit on a 4 invulnerable save if you're not in the early turns, and then once you start taking damage, you switch over to pact reroll so you don't kill yourself and you make your opponent act into you. And I think that's fine, and it's how I would approach this detachment. I don't think this is going to be the best thing in the game, but I would probably be doing like 3 Predators, a Vindicator, 2 Forge Fiends, Abaddon, a squad of Chosen, and then like some Warp Talons and some Cultists. And that's a completely fine, like 5 to 7 vehicles. You maybe put like a Venom Crawler or 2 in. Like 5 to 7 demon vehicles. You can make them demons. You're getting CP out of Abaddon. It'll do. I don't think it's amazing. Put a Lord of Skulls in over the 2 Forge Fiends if you're a fucking Chad.
So Jeremy, you want to talk about Dread Talons then, right, Jeremy? That's what you want to talk about?
So I was actually debating making that joke, but now you've taken it away from me. We're not going to talk about Dread Talons. We're going to talk about Veterans of the Long War, because everyone's already talking about Renegade Raiders. That's the go fast one. We kind of went through the whole thing about the hoops. You have to jump through this. I actually really like Veterans of the Long War for the simple reason of when you can pact and you want access to full rerolls, you could just say that thing right there, I need it dead. Not necessarily good.
You get crummy oaths. Kind of.
Yeah, I would say you actually get
oaths.
It's the exact same oaths, except it doesn't work on your damned units, which is cultists, so who fucking cares?
Oh, no. I mean, my biggest problem with this detachment is like, Abaddon is right there, dude. Do we need to hit rerolls? But
true.
It's still good.
I mean, it just means that you have rerolls over there and Abaddon goes this way.
Exactly. I like this attachment, like I said. I think it's again one of the ones like this is just Gladius, right? It's a Gladius equivalent.
It's your bread and butter, like you can kind of fit or not even bread and butter, like you're like toolkit detachment, where it has a little bit of everything. You have your Armor of Contempt in this detachment, which is nice because it's only in 2 of the or 3 of the 8 detachments for them.
I think it's only in this one in Red Corsairs.
Okay, maybe it's just the 2 then. All I know is that they named it something different in every detachment, and it infuriates me that they did that.
Oh, you mean like the Millennia of Experience and
Contemptuous Disregard.
Yeah, Contemptuous Disregard, and the other one was like Unfailingly Obdurate or something. Like the whole thing was just like, why?
For fun.
Can't it just be Armor of Discontempt?
Discontent.
All right, tell us more about why you love this army or this detachment in this army.
I mean,
It's not in Soulforge. Soulforge have +1 AP, not -1 AP.
yeah, Soulforge have the +1.
Dread Talons
They
don't
have-
have it.
They have the reverse. They have the reverse Uno card version of Armor of Contempt.
Does Cultists have it?
There's
Doesn't
no
sound
way
right.
Cultist has it.
And
It would be funny if they
sure
did, though.
Fellhammer doesn't have it because Fellhammer has the Field of Pain instead.
I think does Fellhammer have the obdurate one? Actually, I think that's what they've
No.
got.
It's only veterans and it's veterans and Red Corsairs.
Yeah.
Oh, it is Renegade Raiders have unfailingly obdurate. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's yeah.
It's
Renegade
just-
Raiders has unfailing altar, and this one's contemptuous disregard. I like it because it's a very simple, straightforward detachment. I will say I really like War Master's GIF on a Footlord.
Oh yeah, crit 5s against your crit 5s with dev wounds is fucking Yaldi in a squad of Legionnaires.
crit
Love
5s
that.
to wound specifically.
Yep.
Which is just
It's real
so
good.
beautiful. And then of course, Endless Ire is cute, but at the same time, it's 2 CP, but it's 2 CP. It's your portable Gilliman. It's 2 CP. Pick a new thing after you kill your first one.
You
Which
also have so I have a question for you, Jeremy. Eager for Vengeance, okay? This is the one where you can put on any heretic stuff you want, like Sealing Cultist stuff. Bears
Yeah.
units eligible to shoot and charge when it fell back.
Yeah, I know where we're
When
going
it
with
does
this.
so, each time a model in that unit makes an attack that targets your focus of hatred, add 1 to the hit roll. Do you only get that if you fell back?
I would say no, but it is just unclear enough. I would say that you always get the +1 to target it,
reads like
and you
have to fall
always
back
get
to
the
get double
+1 when
hit,
you
the +1
charge
to
it.
right? Like it definitely reads the wrong way, right?
Yeah, and the reason that I would say this
Veterans of the Longbore.
is because
Thank
it
you,
says that it
Princess.
is eligible to shoot and declare charge in a turn in which it fell back. And so it says, while doing so, I would just say declare a charge or be selected to shoot. But I do agree, it could use an errata
I have
or an FAQ
one
to
more
be like,
follow-up one for Renegade Raiders rule question, which comes courtesy of Al. If you use the fallback stratagem, you're not capped at 6, right? You just fall back the full distance.
the
So the
which one's
Renegade
this?
Raider stratagem, the one that's
opportunistic.
yeah, opportunistic raider, or yeah, whatever it's called. The one where it's just like if you're still in combat, you just make a fallback move. That fallback move has no like distance limitations.
Yeah,
So
that's correct.
If you're like a demon prince, for example, you just go 14.
Don't Demon Princes only move like 11?
Not Slanesh ones. Slanesh is supposed to move, and they're moving 12.
Oh yeah, if it makes a fallback move, then yeah, it would make sense that it could do it without limitation.
Yeah.
The limitation is on the
But-
previous bit, not on the second
The
bit.
limitation is on making the normal move.
Yeah, but
Limitation
I
is
guess
not on
the
other one.
restriction there, yeah, I guess it is just better to make a fallback. That is funny. Oh,
It's actually not infantry or mounted.
No, it's not.
Only. It's infantry or mounted only for the
No.
non-fallback.
It says you make a
move.
no move up to 6 or up to 12 if it is a
Oh,
mounted.
yeah, it's
unit.
mounted. If it's a mounted. unit.
Otherwise,
so it's not.
your unit can make a fallback move, and there is no criteria.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Warp Talons are absurd with that stratagem, just for them.
Yes,
and it's
yes,
one of the
they
reasons that.
I mean, warp talons are absurd, generally speaking. I think.
Now,
Yes.
here's the fun question. What's the order of the sequencing on that?
Depends on the turn.
Uh,
But if it's your opponent's turn, you just fall back from them, and who cares? You don't need to go back into reserve. You're on the.
you don't need to
board.
bounce.
Yeah.
And if it's your turn, you say, I'm choosing the order this is happening.
Yeah,
They're
I would
falling
like
back
the
and then they're
Raiders
eating.
fuck off. Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
All right.
Look, I'm looking for a Land Raider bouncing away in shame. That's the hero play.
I just want to talk very briefly about Fellhammer Siege Host because it's also funny.
The detachment role is great.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a great
can I do one
detachment
more thing
rule.
on the last one before we jump on.
Go for it.
Yes.
If I charge something with like a Land Raider, for example, okay, and then I live to the end of the fight phase, and then I use that stratagem, I can desperate escape on that fallback move to go over you, right? To
Yes,
steal your objective that you're move blocking or something.
yes,
Like-
you can.
What?
Because it is a fallback and there is no criteria on making a desperate escape. You don't have to be like, you cannot make a legal move otherwise. You can always opt to make a desperate escape fallback. Better
So
hope they have 2
here's-
CP just in
here's the
case.
Hero play, okay? A Cursed Cultist squad with a Dark Commune charges something. and then falls back over it and just envelops it.
God damn it.
It's the new rap.
Now I don't even want to talk about Fellhammer anymore.
It has a reactive 5-up field of pain that's shooting only.
Yeah.
And
it definitely
really
feels like
cool.
the Terminator detachment.
Oh, it
If you
very much
wanted to play
screams, I want a
Terminators.
10-man brick of Terminators that sits in the middle of the board and does fuck all.
Mm-hmm.
But they won't die.
They'll look like cool. They'll look way cooler than Mega
they
Knobs.
will die. What?
They'll eventually die.
Look, man, people are out here killing Mega Knobs through a 4-up field of pain and armor contempt. You're trying to tell me that a 5-up field of pain Terminator is going to live?
-1 to wound.
Oh no!
Look, it's the
something.
poor man's more expensive Mega Knob.
It's Leviathan Tyranids at home.
It's the Leviathan Tyranids if you bought it on Wish, yeah. I think this
Leviathan
detachment...
Tyranids would have
Hammer
loved to have a
Talons.
1 CP 5-up Field of Pain instead of risking failing your Field of Pain spell.
Mm-hmm. It does have the best enhancement where you get to anti-fortification 4-up, so you can beat up that guy who brings all those
At the
bunkers.
very least, you still have anti-vehicle 4-up. They weren't
it's
completely
good
trolling with that
enhancement,
one.
like, that's not good shit.
I
No,
feel
the best
like
enhancement in the book
somebody...
is obviously Eater of Dread. +1 to the roll for every command phase for your 5-up CP. +1 for every battle shock unit.
I think Dread Talons is funny. It's not
funny, but
good.
it's not good.
It's not good, but it's funny.
Look, that strat is messed up. And again, it has so many hoops, but charging your opponent in their turn it'll end games.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you still count as having made a charge move, so you get
good.
all of the other benefits.
Mm-hmm. Like Harker Wall Claimer's mortal wounds on the charge.
Yeah. The pop back up into reserves as long as you're not in engagement range of your opponent's units is kind of neat. I think that's
you
cool.
can play Warp Talons, but
You could just have a non-Warp Talon unit do it, I guess. A Raptor unit, just for funsies.
it's true. Melee is dead this edition, actually.
Oh, the Screaming Descent is also just funny.
I mean,
Yeah,
Screaming
3
Descent is
inches battle shock somebody.
3 inches battle shock. Yeah.
Everybody knows that 3-inch deep strikes are better when it's on OC1 units, right? That's how that works.
I mean, if you battle shock your opponent, yeah, then it is better.
I just can't wait for the first game where somebody goes with like, I'm going to Screaming Descent my Raptors next to you and fire my Melta-Guns, and you've got 5 OC and I've got 5 OC, so I'm contesting it. Oh, you didn't feel your battle shock. Oh, I smited myself. Shit, I killed a guy. Oh, I missed with both my Melta-Guns.
Oh no. Goodness.
And then I failed my battle shock test on the next turn.
I also feel
It's
the
like,
hazardous from my
God.
pistol.
Fucking damn it.
All right. Do we want to
Flux
summarize
Talon?
where we think this book ends up? Or do we want to talk about Warp Talons and how fucking amazingly silly they are?
I think it's a solid A art book.
Yeah, it's like high B, low A.
Yeah. I think it's
a good book. It's powerful.
I think it's solidly A. I feel like it's got enough weird bullshit in it that some people are just going to crack the code and make it from every other Blood Moon to every Blood Moon. And it'll just happen just often enough more that somebody will do better work with it.
I think it'll be much stronger outside the top tables as well. Like outside of the X and O bracket, like in the X and 1 bracket and the X and 2 bracket and lower, I think this book is a lot stronger because the hoops are easier to jump through when your opponent is not playing around them as well or making mistakes. If your opponent's Canoptic Court list is on objectives with their wraiths, they will fucking die. And if they are not, they will not. And that is a play skill bar to clear.
Yep.
I think the Inevitable Broken Soul combo, it's going to involve Dark Communes somehow. I feel that is strongly what I'm expecting. Would I describe this book as modern Custodes? No, I would not.
I think this book is good. Custodes is very mediocre.
This book is like Death Watch Marines went on release. Like it's just that detachment 7 times.
Minus Death Watch Marines on release minus the Dev Wound issue.
And minus Desos. On release of edition, not on previews, but yeah. Minus Desos. If Renegade Raiders had Whirlwinds, it would be correct. But it doesn't, so we're all safe. Imagine that army, but it can also kill your chaff from behind walls.
It's a real shame that they don't have any of those old Forge World indirect platforms anymore.
Yeah, triple Whirlwind Scorpius back with the old double shoot. Yeah, it'd be great.
Oh.
Everyone, remember people could try and spend 2 CP to double shoot a Whirlwind Scorpius, and now we spend 2 CP for fucking what are 2 CP strats in this book? Armor Contempt? No, that's gone. We now spend 2 CP for Endless Ire to move our Oath of Moment. Ooh.
Ines, you want to do the plugs?
Not really, but I will.
You're gonna do them anyways because we need you to.
Oh yeah, triple Nurgle Soul or double Nurgle Soul Grinder to make people stand on objectives in your Renegade Raiders list. That's what I want.
There you go.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us so far for episode 91 of Stat Check. It still mind boggles me that we made it to 91 episodes. We are 2.5 months away from episode 100. It's insane. Thank you guys all so much for being with us on this journey. If you're in a position to support us in any way, we really appreciate that. There are a bunch of ways you can help us out. First of all, is just youtube.com/statcheck. Drop a like, comment, subscription, all that kind of stuff. All of the engagement and interaction really helps us out with discoverability and getting to do even more of the cool stuff you guys seem to be enjoying. So if you're in a position to support us financially, you can check out StatCheck on Patreon, patreon.com/StatCheck. $5 a month gets you access to the Discord community where we're all very active and engaging and speaking about CSM lists and CSM list counters and mega knobs and a lot of mega knobs. Dear God, so many mega knobs. You can also see all of my baked goods as they go live. I will remember to take a picture of my blondies. I haven't put that in there yet. You can get access to things like the Vibe Check League, which is the like quarterly TTS tournament that we run, all that kind of stuff. That's all in the Patreon. There are a bunch of other shows on the network. At the moment, you can find Enter the Matrix, Take All Comers, and Champions of 40K, who've just done their episode with David Gaylord on YouTube. They come out at various times throughout the week, but check them out. They are all incredible people doing amazing 40K content that is worth your time and consideration. StatCheck's brought to you by our wonderful sponsors. Red-Dragon.ca is Jeremy's local store and an incredible supporter of the show. They have just recently launched the new merch for us, so we have objective markers and the Chaos Knight objective markers, and future coming back with the StatCheck Dice in stock, as well as the StatCheck mats once we hopefully keep submission updates in July, because we're holding hanging fire until that to see if they come out. That's red-dragon.ca. If you're a Patreon member, you can also get a 20% discount code through your Patreon subscription. So if you're going to do an order with them, you might as well subscribe to us for the month, get your discount code. Just do it. It costs me nothing. You can also check out Will and Yutani, who do the terrain for WGC, as well as mats, subjective markers, and all that kind of thing based in Europe. Links to them in the description. There is a code StatCheck5 that'll get you 5% off at discount. StatCheck5? Stat5? They'll get you discount code. It's in the description again. And you can check out Saltar Games on Etsy. They do tokens, measuring gauges, widgets, things of that nature. You can find them at just search for Saltar Games on Etsy, or again in the description. And there's a code that's either Stat15 or StatCheck15, and I never remember which one. It's also in the description. Weirdly, the stuff's in the description, so I don't have to remember it all. You can check out stat-check.com/coaching, or drop us an email at coaching@stat-check.com if you'd like to get a hand from either myself, Jeremy, Typhus, or now Nicholas from Take All Comers. All of us are available if you are interested in getting any help with this new data slate meta game, anything coming up, if you've got events, practice, or you just want to beat your friends up a little bit more often, drop us a message. We'd be more than happy to discuss your requirements and give you a hand. Finally, you can check out gamersapparel.co.uk/statcheck for all of our brand new merch that we are, for me, is hopefully in the post at this point. I'm looking forward to having that. I'll hopefully have it in hand for ITT. So yeah, there is a bunch of stuff coming with StatCheck, lots of good things going on. I would say if you're going to check out any one thing at the moment, check out the new Champions of 40K episode with David Gaylord. Steve Joel is a wonderful human being who is interacting with another Kiwi, so I'm sure that episode degenerates very quickly. Or it doesn't, because Steve's a consummate professional. I would imagine that's more likely, but he's not, like the rest of us degenerates on StatCheck. Otherwise, guys,
if you do
that's all I've got for the plugs.
And then we do have a new stat-related email address if you have stat-related questions or concerns. Jeremy, do you remember what that email address is off the top of your head?
Stats with yes at stat-check.com.
Yeah. So if you have any stat-related stuff, instead of sliding into DMs, slide into our inbox.
Yeah, and make sure if you're gonna message us at stats, remember to use our full legal business name, Statistical Checking.
Yes, if you write "Dear Statistical Checking" in your email to our stats email address, I will make sure to answer that email faster.
Nathaniel and Nathan.
Please don't do that. I actually have middle names, so that's the version of it that works, is shouting my full name. So my first 2 middle names and last name is actually the way to get my attention and
There
to
you go.
traumatize me.
I'll make sure that happens at WTC for you, Nathan. Otherwise, we're going to move on to show questions before it gets far too late.
All right. So we do have show questions thread, which you get access to as a member of the Patreon. If you ask questions in that show questions thread, unless it gets too late, we will make sure that they are answered on air during the show. So for $5 a month, you can essentially ask us any questions you want.
Yeah, it's $5 a month to harass Nathan. Like, that's a really good deal, guys.
Basically. So I've got 3 questions in here that weren't in the question thread because they were from before it was created. The first one is, how excited is Vanilla to play Spiky Ironstorm at WTC this year? He's not here, but I'm going to assume that he's very excited to play it.
Anthony's going to force Emperor's Children if it kills him. I can feel it.
True. In the show host opinion, what is the main difference between GW terrain layouts and the WTC layouts, and how should that influence list building?
Play more guns on GW terrain. It's easier to move tanks around. Sightlines are generally easier off the board edge on WTC boards, but across the midboard is usually easier on GW. Generally, default to more guns on GW terrain is you're going to be happier.
The third one is, do you guys have any issues with faction paralysis, wanting to try and lock in a faction that I enjoy but also perform well and have good results for War Masters, and I'm trapped in an endless loop of Votann, AdMech, World Leaders, or Grey Knights?
As someone who has ridden that loop for an extremely long time and is still lacking some level of direction from their team, I empathize with you. In terms of this, I think right now, if I wanted to choose one for you, I would probably say play Grey Knights, because they should still be amazing come War Masters, and they are a very solid army right now, and they're also an army that plays most of the game. But in terms of how do you deal with it, you let me know when you figure it out.
Warhammer that it doesn't matter.
Basically,
I play all the armies I want to play.
As somebody who has a much more limited time to not be able to play Warhammer all the time, eventually you just have to pick a faction. You just got to pick one.
My schedule playing 12 to 15 games a week isn't manageable for everybody.
Yeah. Eventually you just have to pick one, and I'm sorry, you just have to like step out of the cycle if you can and just pick it and stick with it and be done with it. At time of recording, what tier is the CSM Codex? What will it be tomorrow morning?
Oh, it's F tier right now because I was complaining about it, so everybody pinned their codexes. It'll be A tier in the morning when I play a game with it, and it'll be G tier the next time I roll Vashtor. It's in V tier, Vashtor tier. That's where he lives.
In the Vashtor tier.
It's in the Vashtor.
I was going to say it's in the Blood Moon tier.
It's in
when
the
it is tier. The Blood Moon.
The first time that Soulforge Warpack wins a Detachment, we're going to call the episode the Vash tier list. Okay.
Okay. I guess I should say who's asking these questions. Tim the Weird Boy asks, is there anything in Tau, Orcs, or CSM that you think breaks the game sufficiently enough to warrant an emergency nerf?
No.
I think you might need a clarification on a couple on like the soul exchange enhancement and stuff like that, just to make sure that everything's clear about how some of that stuff works.
I'm looking
Jeremy,
for
you're muted.
Diagram Instagram short. It's going to be great. It's going to make us billions.
You're muted, Jeremy.
It let me know that I was muted this time. I don't like. There's little things that may require FAQs or erratas or like tweaks to the wording to make it more clear, like what happened with Monka. But there isn't like from a balance perspective, I don't see any of these books breaking the game.
Yeah.
Are some going to be pretty strong? Yes. Are some going to be kind of hard to deal with? Yes. Are we going to have a like? Let's just say Q3 2023, which was the one that adjusted Eldari for like the second time. Are we going to be seeing that again? No.
You're just going to have to learn to play against Orcs and Tau and CSM, guys. Like, you just got to get good.
And Necron still.
I mean, if you don't know how to play against Galactic Corp by now, I can't help you.
Nick, a Red Poppy asks, when do you decide to get rid of secondaries you likely won't score versus changing them in your command phase? Is this a turn 4/5 judgment, or will you swap turn 2?
If I have enough CP, I will swap. If I don't, I won't.
Yeah, it all depends on what I need my CP for that turn.
Yeah.
And also where I'm at with scoring secondaries.
Yeah. I've definitely discarded and redrawn on one before as an army that just like there are some times where you're just playing like a race to 80 points in team scenarios where you're just in a losing matchup, and you're just the best thing you can do for your agency is just bidding a card and moving on. But that's very much a team play consideration where I'm just like, I'm losing this game. I need to make sure it doesn't happen hard. But in general, I would say if you need a rule of thumb, turn 4 and 5, I would probably recycle it. I would recycle a card unless I strongly need my CP for something. Turn 1 and 2, I usually wouldn't. Turn 3, it's basically down to game state. If you're ahead, I would usually not bother. If you're behind, I would consider it unless you have a real solid plan for your CP. And then never hold a card that isn't going to score you more than 5 points. If it's going to score you 5, just bin it. Unless it's capture that you know you're getting, signals you're getting for 8, or bring it down and your opponent's vehicles are all on 1 wound, just bin it. Just get a new card. Get the CP. Unless you're just like in your corner and you're never scoring, getting another scoreable card, in which case, I guess. But you're already losing at that point. You're just playing for tiebreakers.
Donald P asks, is there a good way statistically to look at early data in a meta and compare it to the end data of a meta to see if early indicators are valid? Like looking at the first 2 weeks of Leviathan 1.6 quarter 1 data slate compared to the full picture and say, yeah, 2 weeks is actually enough to know what is good / bad.
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say you need. You probably need about 3 or 4 weeks.
People could just change the date time, right, to see the.
No. What he's asking about is that is there a particular window that you look at when a change has happened to a meta that will then tell you how the rest of the meta may evolve? And I think the answer to that is what we found is that things tend to stabilize about 3 or 4 weeks in, because you'll have the initial early adopters who come up with interesting stuff. You'll have the testing where things that don't work show up at events. And then in the weeks that follow, you'll have people who try to adapt, who write lists to counter the things that are evolving. And that cycle is usually about 3 or 4 weeks before it starts to somewhat settle in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I was going to say 4 weeks. I know that people want data faster. It's 4 weeks to make solid conclusions. You can make hot takes off of a week or 2 of data if you want. You just have to understand that they're hot takes. And you have to caveat things with the fact that you know that you're doing that. You can't just be like, this is true after 2 weeks of data.
That doesn't sound right. That sounds made up. Don't caveat.
No. We definitely need to make sure that Meganobs are 45 points a model. Breachers need to go back up to 120 points for 10. Riptides need to be 225 points. And Chosen need to be 40 points a model.
Yeah.
Look, I'll accept Chosen at 40 if Legionnaires can be 12.
And Legionnaires can be 21 points a model. I'll give you the flip of that.
And Abaddon won't even have the undivided keyword anymore.
You'll have no keywords.
None. Not a single keyword will be had. Except Epic Hero, so that people don't spam him. Mark asks, for singles, Blood Angels, Sons of Sanguinius into various flavors of CSM early impressions. And is there anything that stands out?
That matchup in general.
BA are good into melee armies that have to run at you, and if you're playing shooting your BA armies, they can't Nurgle strata anymore, so it's probably going to be fine.
This is particularly Sons that he's asking about, so I would say you're in a pretty good spot.
It's the kind of list that's good into that kind of stuff. You're going to have a difficult time having it be terrible.
Ben Jurek asks, what is your childhood nostalgia food, and does it hold up under your adult palate? Young Ben loved Dunkaroos. Today they just don't hold up.
Homemade beef stew. It was a staple in my home growing up, and I haven't had it in the longest time. So I'm thinking maybe I should go make myself some beef stew sometime next week when I get back.
I don't really have anything off the top of my head. I moved around too much. Boarding school does that to somebody. I don't really have comfort food from when I was growing up, really.
I mean, clearly it's Butterfingers.
They're more of an adult thing, but sure.
So this year at This year at Adepticon, TJ Lanigan's team was 90s themed. So he had 90s snacks as well. So I got to have gushers and dunkers again and stuff like that. And so it was amazing for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
I was like, man, I get to eat all of the snacks from when I was growing up in the 90s.
And your mom can't say no.
And true. And I actually really enjoyed Dunkaroos because they were one of my favorite things. And then also Gushers, which were also one of my favorite things. But it also reminded me about how terrifying some of those commercials were when I was a kid, is the other thing that I started remembering. People eating Gushers and their heads turning into fruits and stuff like that. Or the Capri Sun one where everybody turned into Mercury and then flew around in the sky.
American commercials are so confusing. I love it.
Dan F then asks, what do you think is Abaddon's favorite way to eat an egg?
Very slowly over the he'd make it like a 13-part course.
Arts of omelet.
Damn it. I don't think Abaddon actually ever eats the egg. He cracks 13 eggs trying to make an omelet and then never actually gets it right, so he never actually gets to eat his omelet.
Well, no, then he explains that it's all part of a larger plan, and on the 14th crack, he'll get it. The all will be revealed.
He's been trying to practice like the one-handed egg crack to opening the egg into a pan for a very long time, and just
that's so much fun to do. I love doing that.
Flat surface, always on a flat surface, never on an edge.
Yep.
Just do it in your hand. Be an adult.
Wait, you can do that too.
The real Dave McLeod asks, what is Innis doing with the Lord of Skulls, and why should I be worried asking for a friend?
You should be worried.
we just go to earlier in the episode, and he will describe the shenanigans that he's going to get up to with that Lord of Skulls, most likely.
It, on average, with all the buffs, kills the Mega Nob squad from full through Feel No Pain.
During the WA?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's messy, but it definitely can go wrong, but
I mean,
it sure can.
It feels like anything the Corn Lord of Skulls does is messy because its giant jugs are like full of blood.
Okay, if I ask you what the Lord of Skulls' datasheet rule is, what do you think?
I know what it is for World Eaters because it's very silly.
It's
I don't
so much worse.
What is it for CSM?
What is it?
After you kill a unit in combat, everything within 6 takes a battle shock.
Aww.
So it's just a gory massacre?
Disappointing.
It's fucking awful. It doesn't have a datasheet rule.
No, it doesn't.
Dan F asks, are Plague Marines the sauce in a Renegade Raiders list?
No.
Maybe. Kind of them in a Rhino with 4 rolls to hit and wound, but again, it's the hoops you have to jump over to get that.
I think they're a lot better in veterans because they just do their job with full hit rerolls.
Is it like
actually because they have lethals and everything?
Or something,
so you could also have 4 flamers in that squad with 2 of the plague spears, 2 of the plague sprayers, which means you can get 24 shots with ignore 24 shots plus out of the ignore cover stratagem, which I think is actually pretty solid. I don't think it's like insane, but I think it's pretty reasonable.
Yep.
Are rubrics any good then in that Renegade Raiders list? With extra AP
Rubrics
and
are
stuff
really
like
good
that?
Renegade Raiders because they're already kind of locked to dealing with objectives. They're just a very good like trade opening piece. I think rubrics are at their best in the detachment. I don't think they're great outside of that.
Plus, rubrics love having assault.
Yeah, they're actually kind of interesting in Fellhammer, but
-1 to wound,
-1 to wound, and the 5 reactive strat is quite fun for them when you're flipping objectives with them as a trading piece.
Yeah,
it's not insane, but it's like one of the places that they're pretty reasonable.
That one guy, John, also has a question, which is going to the extremes in GSC viable? Thinking all gun, no abbeys, minimal screening versus Muscle Beach plus Steelers for all close combat.
I think you want to do one of the extremes or the other. I think mix and matching can be a little problematic. I don't think it's bad, but I think if you want to like win GTs with GSC right now, doing one or the other is probably the way to do it. I wouldn't want to bring one squad of Aberrants, and I wouldn't want to bring, one squad of Demo Charges. Like I think you gotta go pretty extreme with it.
And with how expensive everything is in that army, you also just can't afford to come up with a critical mass on either side while still committing to the first.
Truman has a question, which is mostly for Jeremy. Any common TO mistakes or faux pas that you see at events that make you scratch your head?
Probably the biggest one is insisting that you're right, even when presented with alternate evidence. I've made a couple of mistakes in my. I've made quite a few mistakes in my time as an event judge over the years, and my goal is always just to never repeat the same mistake. It can be very. It can be very disheartening for a player to be at an event, be told that something works one way when they know it works another way, and then to go and find that information, present to the TO, and say, no, this is the final, it's done. And then even when the TO, is then corrected later, they don't change their mind on it. And then the other biggest one is inconsistent rulings across an event. That's the biggest faux pas, I would say, is if you have 2 or 3 people who are working an event, make sure you give the same answer. This actually happened this weekend. It was something that I had to poke Phil, who was co-running the event with me for the first time, about a couple times, where he would give an answer. I'd be like, that's check with me if you're not entirely sure, because I just gave the exact opposite answer, which I'm pretty sure was the right one, to someone else at another table. So
I would suggest if you're
consistency
gonna
is
have
the biggest
multiple
one.
judges at an event, like have a WhatsApp group that you just put rulings into.
Yep. Most of my bigger events, we will have a WhatsApp or a Facebook group where we just drop everything in there, and we'll have like a Google Doc or something similar where we'll track like weird shit that's happened or has come up that's had to require, multiple interactions.
I'm real excited to work on like a judge team for this Ottawa Teams event. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Truman's second question is, why did Death Guard players keep trying to make my Fiddick Blight Haulers work?
Because they're just so close to being good.
But
they're still way too expensive.
They're cute. I like that's my preferred answer.
Little maw.
I own 3 of them, and they're really cute.
Fair enough.
We got so many questions.
Sean asks, should GW stop trying to set fixed amounts of time between rules updates? The pacing of their releases seem to be causing more fires than they can put out at that pace.
I think it's fine. I think they're just kind of catching up with the slower release schedule because of production delays and all that kind of thing. We're seeing a lot of books at the same time that would have been a lot more spread out before.
Yeah, because if you think about it, like we saw one book from January to March.
Yep.
And now we're seeing a book every 2 weeks roughly.
Yep.
Soon we'll have a triple event.
Triple.
I mean, the books every 2 weeks seems like it's probably the correct one. It's just that because of, like Ines said, because of the delays, like we're not seeing as many things get touched during their quarterly passes, and then they kind of get inserted into the early part of it, and so now it seems like there's a bunch of fires that need to be put out.
Like I'd like to see all the books this year so that we can just like start playing Warhammer.
Which isn't likely to happen, unfortunately. It's more likely that we will have them all by this time next year.
Sure, and like close enough, right? Yeah. By next WTC, I'd like to be playing with the full game.
Yeah, next WTC we should be playing with we will play the one WTC that we get to play with the full edition.
Don't say it like that. It hurts my head when you say it like that.
Hopefully we won't have another index edition. That's all I can say. Adam Thylacine asks, to what extent do you feel the majority of the community sentiment / perception around the strength of a unit / detachment / book becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy? Like custodes equal bad. People jump ship before exploring the book more deeply. Bully boys equal good. People expect to lose their games. Is there a way to test the correlation between faction abandonment / uptick in change in performance? Or maybe any correlation between the amount of negative or positive community chatter around a faction and their performance the next week. We did that a little bit when we kind of explored like whether Space Marines were we did it more specifically. Cliff did it about Iron Hands, right? That was what Cliff did.
Yeah, but that analysis was more looking at like how player performance changed when they went from something else to Iron Hands. The question that he's asked, that Adam is asking here, is actually really hard to answer well, because he's basically asking of like, based on the sentiment around a book, does that drive the performance of the book?
I mean, I guess we have a little bit of an answer to that, a little bit with Custodes specifically, because they have a really dramatic change between pre-book and post-book.
Actually bad is the question that we're asking here, or is it just that faction diehards are still playing them and faction diehards are bad at the game?
I guess one of the points that Cliff brought up in his little summary was if you look at the top portion of the ELO, win rate has dropped to like 23% for Custodes, but that still doesn't fully answer the question.
Also, like 7 games.
Yeah, it is a small thing. Like, it's hard to know if that immediacy effect is part of that or not. And it could be like the Custodes book dropped from 9 to 3.3, which is
when
you're
used to playing Index Custodes and you have to adapt to, say, playing Talons, the playstyle is just different enough that it takes a little bit of an adjustment. So I don't know. And it's really hard to make a judgment without like at least in this particular one. We could probably look at it with other ones.
We have to look at some historic examples probably and see if it was true, like what kind of indicators there were previously, and see if it was true in those situations with those indicators.
Yeah.
Might be worth a case study at some point later on after a while with the Custodes book and the Orc book and some other stuff, and kind of see where those things kind of fell. I do think that Custodes are not as bad as the Custodes community is making them sound.
I agree.
There are a lot of people that will just lose to 3 squads of Wardens, 2 of which ingress.
That reactive move
will just lose to that.
The reactive move is also very powerful.
Yeah, that 23% is 13 games.
So is Golden
Yeah.
Wa. Like I watched Golden Wa just table some people last weekend. Like it
Yeah.
just it does that.
Sustained on 5s is hell of a drug when you're hitting on 2s.
Plus 1 AP. Like it's a lot of roll. It's just about leveraging it.
The biggest thing is that people had got too comfortable with the idea that Custodies could like annihilate melee armies, their opponent's melee armies, by just layering a few different defensive buffs, and you can't do that anymore.
And now Custodies already go and murder your opponent army more than anything else.
And I think people will adapt. I played into new Custodies a couple days ago, and I did end up losing by like a point. But at the same time, like the whole game, I was just not ready for some of the reactive move bullshittery that was happening because I just wasn't prepared for it. And it leads you to some weird situations where you're like, oh yeah, I have to do way more around this than I expected myself needing to.
And Horde Champions is like, it's got, like, I think there's 3 playable detachments there. Are they as good as the index one? No, but that index was bullshit. So I think there is, you know, and for the same reasons as CSM, right? It was an unhealthy play pattern that created like a very difficult to balance army. And I think the new one is weaker, but it's still, the data sheets and custodies are still good. The army is still playable. Is it the same thing as it was? No. But that's for custodies players a good thing because it means that you have capacity to be buffed and still be healthy now, where, you know, you could very easily give custodians a few more points, make a couple stratagems about a battle tactic that aren't currently, and then that army is suddenly looking like very reasonable without having to be completely unhealthy. And I think that's a good thing for the health of the game. It's a good thing for custodies players because if that book is just, you know, middle of the pack, you know, somewhere between low A and high C tier, you'll play a bunch of games that'll be super interesting, and your opponents won't be mad at you, and you'll not have to deal with any, oh my god, that's bullshit. I mean, you'll still have to deal with it for Warden Field No Pains, but for Field No Pains is a bad mechanic game wide. It's nothing to do with custodies. So I think it's a better place for custodies to be. And yeah, it's at the bottom of the pile, but there are going to be 10 books that are in the bottom, or, you know, eight factions that are in the bottom third at any given time. I'm not even sure custodies are in that right now. Maybe they are, and if they are, most armies are going to have a turn at the bottom. That's just how having armies that are not all the same power level works.
I think they're low B personally, like maybe high C. I don't know.
Yeah,
they're not.
I think they're going to settle into the 45 to 50 range, probably on the low end of that.
Yeah.
But
Eric asks, where do you feel you draw the line of who is a competitive player in quotation marks? I'm guessing it isn't just WTC level players. Is it X and 1 people lower down the poll? Question mark.
I would say
you choose to try to better yourself with every game you play. If you do, you're a competitive player. If you don't, you're probably casual.
Yeah.
Whether you're doing tournaments or not, like anybody can be competitive. You don't have to be doing tournaments. Are you trying to get better? Are you trying to stay good?
Those that are questioning list design choices and like looking to get that little bit extra out of their list, a little bit extra out of their play. There's lots of different ways you can approach the game competitively. Those that are at the X and 1 or winning tournaments regularly just happen to choose all of those approaches when they're doing it,
or are better at it at the moment. You know, there is lots of factors to go into it. Now, I think in the spirit of the question is, where do I draw the line of being like a good competitive player? You know, if you're capable of winning a game at a tournament, you're a good competitive player. Like there is no and even then, like even if you're not winning games at them and you're going 0-5, like that's not to say you're not competitive. You're just working towards being competitive. Once you hit the point where you are able to give somebody one other person at a tournament a challenging game, you're competitive. That's how it works.
I think like there's different ways to be competitive at this game as well. Like it doesn't all have to be tournament focused in the same way of like results focused.
There's also the hobby side of things.
Yeah, you could be a competitive hobbyist in this game. Like it's not, you don't have to be competitive only at the version of the game that involves WTC. And then the follow-up
question: to sit here and be like, nobody who doesn't go 4-1 is a challenge or a competitor or whatever, right? But it's just not useful. It's not fun. It's not fair, and it's a very exclusionist mentality that isn't helpful for the growth of the community or any part of this. So fuck that.
Yeah, exactly. As a follow-up, how much do you feel GW should focus balance on WTC level players, and how much focus should they put on lower level but still competitive players, understanding that those two interests are related but not identical?
I would actually say that they're identical, because I would say that while, you know, and I are going to disagree on this one, possibly.
A lot, yep.
But I basically look at it from the perspective of a well-balanced meta reflects that at all tiers of competition.
I don't disagree with that, but I think that the balance requirements of both levels are different, and it is okay to have changes aimed at both. Now, I think Renegade Raiders is a really good example of that. I think Renegade Raiders and Mega Knobs and things like that are perfectly fine at the WTC level. You can pair around them, you can pair for them, they're going to have good matchups and bad matchups, and people will build experience with them. And you know what they're going to suck for? Is everybody who is going 2 and 3 and 3 at tour tournaments that has to play into them anyway, and isn't quite at the level where they can deal with that. And for those players, it's probably fair that those things should get nerfed, because everybody deserves to have a fun and interactive experience, regardless of the power level. Now, when there are mechanics that are unhealthy at the top levels, I think Phantasm is a great example of that. Phantasm probably wasn't all that busted for the average player. It was good, but were you leveraging it that hard? But it needed to be nerfed because at the top levels for the best players, it was creating the most unhealthy game patterns of all time. And it's okay to have a nerf aimed at something that is at the top level and something that's aimed at the mid level, and have those be different and have them coexist at the same time. I think you can't ignore one and just balance for the WC players. I don't think you can just balance for the mid tables, because the top people and having it be aspirational to be good at the game and win tournaments is a thing that drives tournament attendance and people playing Warhammer. So I think you have to aim balance at both, and they're not the same, and that it's okay for some nerfs to be aimed at some sets and some nerfs to be aimed at others. I think you'll see stuff like there's some armies that are very balanced at the top level play that need to be nerfed because they're just unhealthy down the line. And does that make them less good at the top level? Yeah, it does, because we're playing a game in an environment that involves hundreds and thousands of other players. We're not just balancing for ourselves. And it's okay that an army that, it would have been nice if it had been hit not as hard as it was, because the top level community was dealing with it fine, gets hit, and, now it falls out of viability. The top level players can adapt much easier than the lower level players can, because we're all jumping armies and moving about with much higher velocity than anybody else is. If you're, I think Guard is a great example of that. Did Guard need the nerfs at the top level? Probably not. But for the mid-table players, that army was obnoxious and difficult to play into. And removing it from the top level viability also removes it from mid-level viability, because now nobody's playing it. And for the health of that, it's probably better if the top level Guard players move on. And, that sucks for them. There will come a time where there's a Guard back in the game, but for the time being, nobody has to deal with that toxic presence in the meta. And I think there's a difference between the two levels of balancing there, and you have to be aware of that.
So I have a hot take version of this, which is that I know we're using WTC as a team member thing, but I don't think the game should be balanced around teams play at the moment.
No,
because
I'm using it as
of how small. Play, right? Yeah, just to clarify, for my purposes, teams play is not the balancing point that we should balance Warhammer 40k around. But
no,
I think that we were looking at it more from the perspective of, if you're a WTC player, you're one of the best players in the world, and balancing around those people's play patterns as compared to those who are, regularly 3 and 2 at events.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I think is that more changes should focus on the middle than on the top.
Agreed.
Because while we may not always talk about it, and sometimes we don't talk about it, it's that most of the people who play this game, like the vast majority of people who play this game, are not winning events. That's just the nature of how events work more than anything else. And so the way that the game should be balanced is around the middle, the average player of Warhammer 40k at a competitive level, not around the top or the bottom portions of it necessarily. But that's what I think personally. Goran asks, I know what you meant, Cultist Chan. I just insisted on saying it that way because I wanted
Nathan just wants to feel better than WTC players, which is fine. They deserve it sometimes.
It's true. Innes, I get your points about CSM, but I don't know if it's right to see everything from a top player's perspective.
God damn it.
There are very few top guys. Do you think that all detachments in the CSM book are not as great as they seem? And how does Tau and Orcs compare to CSM?
That's way too many points in a question, but I agree. I didn't say I didn't think the book was good. I said I am not happy with the book. Those are different things. For me, and the level for the games that I'm going to be playing, think I would struggle to put Renegade Raiders on the table and be happy with it, because I think it has too many things to jump through. That is nothing on the power level and the capacity to win tournaments. I think it's very capable of doing that. I think it is a worse book than Orcs, and it feels about a level with Tau. power level wise. But yeah, I don't think CSM is a bad, like a weak codex. I just don't like it. It's a separate issue there. So yeah,
I also think we
I'm
all
trying to
put it.
conflate the two.
We all put it in A tier repeatedly throughout this conversation. Ivan C says, "How many armies is too many?"
The limit does not
10?
exist.
The answer varies from person to person.
How many can you physically store? How many can you keep up with?
The real one. The real answer for me is how many can you physically store? Like, you shouldn't have models coming out your ears, guys.
I have that problem right now. So
I also have that problem right now.
That's why the guard got Mary Condoed.
Yeah,
just all Lord of Spells. I don't know where I'm going to store that fucking thing. It's the size of a small house. I might store my Admech army in it.
I did just Mary Kondo an army, but I won't say which one yet.
I never saw models. I used my 5th edition.
As long as it wasn't your Drukhari, you're safe.
It wasn't my Drukhari. Luke 1705 says, "Is 30 Raider Warp Talons a meme or the dream?"
Probably a meme. I'd go with 20.
I like 25. I think 25 is probably fine, but 10, 10, 5. I think 20 is actually like 2x10 is actually better in Alpha Legion because you can manage both of them. In Corsairs, it's a little harder.
They max at 10 per unit, right? So that's almost the maximum number of Warp Talons you can take, regardless of the situation.
Yeah, don't play 20, don't play 30 unless you have. Yeah, I would actually consider 30 in Pact Bound because you get Grit 5s and they actually do their job. Because they will just hit 40 times. But in the other ones, like you're adding just 20% of the damage up if you play them in Pact Bound, which I like. So
Eric has a second question, which is, which 40k player were you talking about being on Champions of 40k?
David Gaylord.
We're back to this concept again with Eric asking questions.
It's Steve Joel who runs it. I have no idea I don't know whose guess was this week. You'll have to check the episode to find out. Sorry.
No. Ivan C says, "Will orcs or CSM be the new boogeyman?"
Necrons.
He asked, "Will they be the new boggy man?"
Necrons will be the new
boogeyman. I don't know.
Somehow.
Necrons will be the new boogeyman while being the old boogeyman at the same time.
And who knows? Maybe Eldari will show up again.
Somehow. Whatever Liam VSL plays next is going to be the new boogeyman. We all know that.
I think he's playing T-Suns right now.
Still, yeah. I still think T-Suns is the best army in the game right now.
And then Adam.
The
last question from Discord, and then I'm going to go through questions real fast. Do we have too many facts?
Give it 1 second. Your audio needs to catch up. Okay. Try again.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Yes. No.
There we go. You lagged out horribly.
Okay. I did look up and my Wi-Fi symbol was at the top and I was like, oh, I see what's happening. Adam's got the last question in Discord and then we're going to pop over to YouTube questions real quick and then we'll dig through it. Adam says, do we have too many factions now? How long until some need to start being retired or amalgamated? Which faction should go?
Well, we already got rid of Harlequin, so that's one down.
They're not gone.
But they're not a real faction anymore.
I don't think there's any need for marine supplements to exist anymore, and I think they could all be folded back in exactly like they were last edition.
I think we could just get a Chaos Space Marine book with 8 detachments.
What do you mean last
and
edition?
be done with it.
They had books.
No, they had the supplements from 8th edition.
Oh, you mean the Codex compliant guys? Yeah, those guys aren't getting shit.
I mean, I would just fold like Dark Angel, Space Wolves, everything into the Marine book. None of it needs to be separate. I think it's stupid that it is. I think realistically, like Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights could probably be the same army. But
I mean, they would still have slightly different rules, but yeah, I mean, Knights should just not be armies, period. They should just be allies. Yeah. Same with Custodes.
I think you could very easily make them data sheets and a detachment and like 3 detachments for each of them that had allied rules. I don't think that would particularly be problematic. But
Grey Knights and Death Watch.
Can we just get rid of Agents of the Imperium entirely?
That would work too.
I was going to say you could just fold it all back into an Inquisition book or something like that. Like just fold it all together.
Sisters in there as well. Sister, Death Watch, and Grey Knights.
That's how Sisters used to work, right? We could do the Ordo Hereticus, Xenos, and Malleus all together in one book.
Get rid of Grey Knights and Sisters at the same time. I think that makes sense. They're both about equivalent in the lore, right?
Yeah. And while we're at it, we can put Chaos Space Marines and regular Space Marines all in one book.
Yeah,
They can share the same 8 detachments. It's fine.
Abaddon and Guilliman can just share a data sheet.
There you go. It's just Abaddon if you're playing Chaos and Guilliman if you're not.
They both have a sword and they both have a gun.
Huron can be the lion because they're both about as playable. There we go.
Oof.
No, Vashtor is the lion.
Oh,
Vashtor.
hurts. Hurts Vashtor more than anybody else.
Vashtor's
Right.
the same strength as the lion now. They're both 14.
All right,
Lion's strength 16, but yeah.
Is he? I thought he was 14.
So the questions
also his
for
sweep's the
YouTube.
same damage.
Paul Botello asks, what army or armies should be the zenith of damage output and commensurately worse in other army balance ways if the game was better designed?
World Eaters should be the highest damage output when they connect. World Eaters should do the most damage.
Yeah, that's kind of a hard one to say. Like, World Eaters is probably the right answer, but that's because they're pure melee.
No shooting army should be in the top half. That's my fucking hot take.
Now, without being made out of like the brittlest of materials.
Don't give a shit. No shooting army should be in the top half for damage output.
Paint Celestine asks my question: since Khorne Berserkers / Plague Marines are in the book, does this mean Marines you can take rubrics and CSM list and take 1K Sons and teams?
Yes.
God, that's yes.
Yes, you currently can.
Does.
At least according to the WTC, because that question was asked.
1,000 Suns. The way that WTC is determined is you cannot have
faction keywords being used.
They replace the faction keyword when you include them in the army. That's why you can't ally in Chaos Knights and have Chaos Knights. You are not playing 1,000 Suns Rubric Marines. You are playing Rubric Marines that don't have our data sheets that have all the Hereticus Stars keywords in detachments where they don't get dark packs.
Yeah,
I think people need to chill. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's a little unexpected because it used to be models from the book, but
there was like allowances made for shared data sheets, like tech percentages and stuff like that. So like it's always been like a little funky with shared units. So
there's a lot of really funny stuff in our YouTube chat today.
Right? You could have just been like, all right, your Grey Knight, your 1,000 Suns and your Space Marines both have rhinos. Can't do that, right? So,
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
Fuck that.
Well, but they're all one army, right? Because 1,000 Suns is just Chaos Space Marines.
That's true.
Marines.
Yeah.
You only take one of those.
Yeah, we're just 3 books now. We're just 3 books: Imperium, Chaos, and Xenos now.
So we're now playing 3-player teams.
Xenos? Like Xenos is basically just Votan, and Votan are basically just Imperial Guard. So we could just.
They can just be Imperial Guard auxiliaries now.
Exactly.
Okay.
You can bring Necrons with your. You can bring Necrons in
Jeremy, that was the too far line for Jeremy.
No, I'm actually just thinking of the hilarity of what would happen there.
All right. Wilson Hillman asks the real question: how long will Anthony talk about Emperor's Children when it's revealed?
Indefinitely.
For the rest of the edition, every day we'll hear more.
If that book is good, I'm sure Anthony will buy the Heresy Fulgrim and get it painted.
He might do that even if the army isn't good, to be totally honest. He does love his Emperor's Children. Tim Barrow asks, am I still the worst 40k player in the world?
Okay, so I started this actually. Tim, I've been meaning to try to find you. And I mean this in the nicest way possible because... So Tim, if anyone happens to look at the ELO charts that we publish on the website, stash-check.com, has been at the bottom of the ELO since we launched it. The man has played, I think, 13 or 14 GT Plus events in the last 25 months. And he has won 3 or 4 games, I believe.
Good lad. Compared.
And has lost 69. Nice.
Hey. We're also Pavloved.
And so you keep going to events. You travel to events. I noticed that you were at Firebug Open in Germany a little while ago. You were at an event in England this past weekend. I think it was Carnage. There's no nice way to this. What drives you? What keeps you going to events? What keeps you interested in them? Because as someone on the other side of that, that would be incredibly disheartening for me.
So let us know what your answer is.
Keep it up, man. You're doing the Lord's work. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, power to you. You clearly enjoy this game because you keep showing up to events. 1-2 games, 3 buys. Oh, okay.
Does he have the most losses of anybody in the data set?
I don't know.
No, he does not.
I will say, what a champ.
Yeah. So Tim, you are amazing. If ever you are at an event that I am at, hunt me down. and I will give you something cool. I don't know what
You
yet,
have-
but I usually have random goodies in my bags.
The 8th most losses of anybody in the data set. Fucking tied 7th. Let's go.
So, Red Room, I can answer that. Tim brought Ironstorm Dark Angels to the most recent event that he went to.
Yeah.
But seriously, Tim,
Yeah.
you are amazing. You are definitely a hell of an inspiration whenever I find myself struggling. It's like, if you can stay motivated through all of this, I can stay motivated through all of this. So,
Right. And then Tellable asks, and Innis, how many wounds of your 450 point vehicle do you take off doing this Mega Knob activation?
You can only do 4 damage to yourself with the Lord of Skulls. It doesn't have hazardous.
yeah, that's true.
There
You
go.
could just take 1. 2, I guess, because you have the full rerolls.
You would take 2. Yeah. You could take 0 if you double stick your feel no pain.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah, and Ben has the right of it. You need, like, we want to know what your approach is to that to make sure that, like, you stay on the steady on that, because that's a lot. Although I think the very topmost ranked people in Elo are a lot of one personality type who don't take failure or loss as well.
Losing
This
sucks.
is very true.
I got good at 4K so I could stop losing.
I mean, I think we all saw some of the people who went to the WCW who then went on Twitter and like melted down about losing games. Like,
Thankfully, I
there
didn't
were
do that, but
some
I
egos
did that
checked
LGT
that weekend.
beforehand. I didn't need to do it that weekend.
there were some
Okay, I have the
YouTube
third most wins in
videos
the
from
data set, let's
content
go.
creators who like had a real bad time of it after going negative.
I do want to, in that context, shout out Mikey from Hellstorm Wargaming, because he actually had a very good look at it in terms of, like, he got walked over that weekend, and he admits it. He was just like, I did not prepare well enough. I did not expect the caliber of players, and I paid for it. And so in that sense, it was very, kind of heartwarming to see that level of
Self-awareness.
yeah, self-awareness, but also just humility, because that's something that, when we're good at the game, it's something a lot of us can be really bad at.
That's fair. Ben, you have the 8th most wins in the data set, so good job, lad. You're winning a lot.
And that is
Right,
it
is
for
that it for
questions for this
questions?
week. We are done.
Oh, thank goodness
Innis,
I can go to bed.
wheel us out.
I can't. You need to do the thing first, and then I can wheel us out.
Oh shit!
This
I got
is
to do
true.
the thing first.
I had to
Damn
do
it!
this.
All right, you had to do it. Did you make a list? Because I still haven't made a list.
No, I didn't.
Oh, cool.
I did
get
it
to
even
do
more
this now.
stuff than you. So
Awesome. I love that. That's a vibe, definitely. All right. So if you join our $15 a month tier, the Church of the High Five or Chris High Five tier, among the many other benefits that you get is you get to potentially be added to this incredibly scuffed version of where we thank you for being in that tier at the end of every episode. And then I will high five the screen. So only the people from that tier can have the high five. None of you other people can take that high five. It's not for you. I have no way to enforce this, but all right. I'm going to find the beginning issue of this so that I can do this. All right. Oh God, this is terrible. And I should have prepared a little bit. Even thank you, Fungus. There you go. Thank you, Citronat emoji. Thank you, Dan F. Thank you, Paul, Archon Rahal. Thank you, Mr. Pig. Thank you, Pig emoji. Thank you, David Clark. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Unicorn emoji, Scottish flag emoji, Chris emoji. Thank you, Colton Rustbelt Wargaming. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Luke. Thank you,
that one guy, John.
Thank you, that one guy, John. Thank you, Ayer, who I always think about when you told me at WTC how to pronounce your name correctly by pointing at your eye and your ear. That was very useful. And thank you, John. Thank you. I think that's everybody, or that's what I'm going to call everybody. If I forgot you, you can post in the chat that only all of you can see, and you can tell me how terrible of a job I did, because I do a terrible job every week, and I don't know why I do this. It's probably the same emotional moment that Innis has every week that we make him do the plugs in the middle. So here's your high
'cause
five.
I have a bit of paper that has all the information on it that I follow every week that tells me what to do.
It
That's
hasn't
the thing you're
helped
missing.
though, Innes. It hasn't
It's
helped at all.
dude. It's so much better than it used to be.
It is better.
It is better. It's true.
All right.
I just am. So
Like, my
at the end
self-esteem
of
is
this
confident enough to know
episode,
that that's a lie. Fuck you.
you
It's not that high, but it's high enough to know that that's bullshit.
just have
All right,
the heart and
guys.
be okay, buddy. Thank you everybody for watching the
You're
show
doing
this
it the
week.
wrong way now. You have my nails do it like this. You gotta do it. No, wrong way. No.
I'm
That's the
not.
wrong arm.
No, I can't.
We're
All right, I'm not.
millennials here,
I'm
not
not young
Gen
enough to do
Zers.
this. I can't do this.
Exactly. You
All
guys are
right.
too old.
Thank you everybody for
Thank
watching
you.
the show.
No, that's my lie.
No, I'm doing it. Thank you everybody for watching the show. This has been episode 91 of Stat Check. Abandon the Despoiler. I have been Nathan. That has been Innes. There over there has been Jeremy. Bye-bye.
No. What?
Hit the button.
No. You took it away
Good luck,
from him.
good luck to anybody who's in an event
Fuck.
this weekend. If you see us, come say hi. Have a great
No.
weekend. Bye-bye. No.